Bottom right of the bar there.
I can record to the computer.
Recording in progress.
And then if you could share the presentation. You probably want to hit share first. I just want to duplicate it after you move that guy out of the way. Just gotta move that bar stuff is in your way. Grab more and just move it. You gotta take the whole thing and move it around. Grab it for you? Yeah, please. Okay. We're on. What's that? Wait, go ahead.
Throughout this, we may need to move the small box out of the way.
That's okay. We'll make do.
Right now, it's doing very well. Okay.
You have to speak into it.
Yeah, so please excuse me for not standing. I need to speak into the microphone for this. I'm Zachary Cronin, the Assistant City Engineer of Portsmouth. I'd like to thank you all for coming to the Sagamore Ave Sewer Extension Pre-Construction Meeting. I'm here with Terry Damaris, the City Engineer, as well as Kevin Garvey and Roy Babylon from Wright Pierce, and Mark Rainey and Roger Rivet from Severino Trucking. Next slide. So this presentation will go over general information on the project to get people back up to speed. I will then pass the presentation off to Kevin Garvey. We will go over the pre-construction meeting, and we will pause for a question and answer session for the pre-construction part of this presentation. Afterwards, we'll then move into the private side work and then pause for question and answers on that section. I'm sure a lot of people do have questions on the private side work, but we are going to hold questions for the pre-construction, then go over information on the private side, and answer questions for the private side work. I believe that'll keep this moving pretty smoothly and work well. So we'll begin with some general information. Our project team with the City of Portsmouth, it's Terry and myself, as previously stated, as well as a number of other people at the city that will have their hands on the project. For Wright Pierce, there's Mike Terrio, a senior project manager at Wright Pierce. He was unable to join us tonight. Kevin Garvey, and then Roy Babylon. He is the project representative on site, so the resident engineer. You will see him on site during construction, and if you have questions during the construction process, we'll direct them to him. He is our eyes and ears on the ground and will be fairly available to all of you. For Severino Trucking, again, Roger Rivet and Mark Rainey. This is a project overview. The project as a whole, we have Sagamore Creek. North of Sagamore Creek, we have Sagamore Ave, Walker Bungalow Road, Cliff Road, and Shaw Road. And south of the creek, we have Sagamore Grove, Sagamore Ave, and Wentworth House Road. So the project as a whole consists of installation of sewer main in the street, in those listed streets. And then in add alternates, we have private side work, which is connection of each property to the sewer. The way we structured the bid, we went out to bid and received bids December 21st of 2021. The way that bid was structured is we cut it in multiple different base bid and then bid alternates. The base bid consisted of the sewer main in the street north of Sagamore Creek. So Sagamore Ave north of the creek, Cliff Road, Walker Bungalow Road, and Shaw Road. Then we have add alternates, which are pieces of the bid that we go and get unit pricing from contractors for, and then as funding allows, we are able to then award that work. The way our funding is structured, we have awarded the base bid, which is the sewer main in the street north of the creek, and then through our capital improvement plan process, we are going to be able to award the sewer main south of the creek and the private side work, but that is as funding is available
And approved.
and approved by the City Council. On the left side of the screen, we have the green box. That is the section that we have under contract, the sewer main in the street, Sagamore Ave, Cliff Road, Walker Bungalow Road, and Shaw. That's phase 1 of this project, as it's under contract already. Phase 2, we plan to have the sewer main in the street installed south of Sagamore Creek, so Sagamore south of the creek, Sagamore Grove, and Wentworth House Road. Now, the private side work, should the funding be approved through the capital improvement process, would likely overlap with some of this sewer main work, just as necessary, but it is likely that that would get pushed to another construction season as well due to time, but that is at the discretion of the contractor, means and methods of the contractor. So we have current construction schedule. We have DigSafe and the pre-blast survey. I'm sure most of you have received information on the pre-blast survey. We highly recommend that you take main drilling and blasting up on the pre-blast survey. And starting next week, they will begin. They will begin the pre-blast surveys.
Yes.
Yes. We are going to have main drilling and blasting's contact information later on, but we recommend reaching out to them and having a pre-blast survey done on your property. The contractor scheduled to mobilize in early May, set up traffic control measures early May, begin work, which is the radon testing, as well as any blasting mid-May, and we have a substantial completion date of the sewer main in the street, December 30th of 2022. North of Sagamore Creek, paving 1 year after that to allow for a freeze-thaw cycle and settling of the trenches, which would occur in spring of 2023. With the private side work and the funding, we more than likely will have work happening next construction season as well. But this is our current schedule with our work under contract at the moment. I will move over to Kevin Garvey for the pre-construction meeting.
Hi, everyone. As Zach said, too, I gotta remain seated just for the speaker here. One thing just to remind you of, we have a signing list up front here if you wouldn't mind signing, and we also have a contact list with some of the key contacts for this project. It includes the phone number and contact information for main drilling and blasting if you still need to schedule a pre-construction survey. So the key contacts on that list, that would include Roy Babylon, who will be the city's eyes and ears on site. And the main point of contact, if you guys run into any issues during construction, we're running through some of the typical issues on the next slide here. Roger Rivet will be the main eyes and ears on site for Severino. And then Zach Cronin will be the main contact for the city. So contractually, the work hours in this project are from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. In general, the contractor will be off-site outside those hours. They might show up a little bit early to have a pre-construction meeting or pre-workday meeting. The same with, at the end of the day, they might need to do some final cleanup, but those are generally the hours they should be on and off-site. In general, the way we expect this project to go is that they will be performing the blasting up front, installing the main, potentially installing the sewer services afterwards, and then coming back for site restoration. So there may be opportunities or times where the contractor will kind of be in front of your house, move past your house, and have to kind of bounce back a little bit to finish the next phase of their construction. So don't be surprised if you are interrupted more than one occasion. Generally, they will try to move down the road in a linear fashion, though. Traffic control measures for this project, in general, on Sagamore Ave, we're expecting that they will have a one-way alternating traffic. So what that generally means for you guys is, coming up the road, you'll see a sign that says something like road work ahead, then it'll say one-lane road ahead, and then when you get near the construction site, there'll be a temporary stoplight that'll put in, and it'll either be red or green. If it's red, obviously, please stop, and if it's green, it means go, but they'll be starting down traffic on one side of the road at a time and working to actively move traffic through the site. on the side roads that are basically outside of Sagamore Ave, they'll be shutting down small sections of those roads because there's generally good avenues to get out one way or the other. If your property is affected in that shutdown area, the RPR and Severino will work with you guys directly about getting you in and out of your property as needed. There may be short periods of time where you'll need to park your car a couple hundred feet down the road to make sure you have access throughout the day to it. There'll be flaggers on site, and there's already message boards out there kind of recommending today's meeting, for example. One of the other challenges with construction is it can be dusty. They are going to be digging, they are going to be blasting. So we do have measures in the specs and the plans to work on that. So this includes some street sweeping and potential water trucks if it becomes an issue. Some of the other potential impacts would include water service interruptions at the northernmost section of the project. In order to make room for the new sewer main, we have to move one of the existing water mains out of the way, which will include redirecting about, I think it's 5 or 6 services. So there'll be a potentially short shut off for those properties. And then in the route of construction, there's always the potential that a water main could break or something could go awry in that situation, which may lead to a temporary service disruption. We discussed right before the meeting here potential school bus routes. It sounds like there's only one resident to be impacted with that, so we'll probably try to reach out to that resident directly. Otherwise, the school bus route is on Sagamore Ave, and we'll have to work that into the construction phase. There may be some temporary impacts to your solid waste and trash removal also, again, with partial road closures, that can always be a challenge. As I mentioned previously, there may be some restricted driveway access, and there will be road closures on the side roads. So we'll kind of go through a brief overview of the blasting process. People had quite a few questions were sent in ahead of time for that process, so we want to make sure we had a nice slide on it. So generally, the reason they're doing blasting is ledge is very shallow in the road in this project. That's why we're going with a low pressure sewer in general instead of a regular gravity sewer. In general, if they cannot use like a mechanical process such as hoe ramming, that's what they'll go through and blast. For everyone's benefit, including the contractors, they try to keep that to a minimum. So they are going to do some additional inspections in the very early phase of this project during the construction. That will include some additional borings, some of you guys probably saw a year or two ago. And that's going to test how strong the rock is and whether they need to actually blast or there's another alternative way to it. As Zach had mentioned earlier, we certainly recommend you guys partake in the pre-construction surveys. And that would include that there's their name again is on the list, the contact list up front. And hopefully you all received a mailing of that already. I believe to date there are about 120 pre-blast survey requests sent out and about 50 people responded back. Those are scheduled, I think, tentatively for next week and the week after for those 50. Pre-blast survey will generally entail of a member of Main Drilling and Blasting who's a subcontractor to Severino. They'll need to access both the inside and the outside of your property. So they'll be going down your basement, taking photos, potentially videos, just trying to classify what the existing condition is. And the same if there's any outside structures they should be looking at, they'll let you know as they get to your site what things they need to look at. If there's any buried utilities or buried structures that they might not be aware of, such as a underground propane tank, irrigation systems, etc., if you could let them know, that would be great, very helpful. Again, on the slide, we have the drilling and blasting, contact information. Again, it'll be Christopher Scott on that mailing they sent out. You can also sign up to be notified before each blast. In general, before a blast is performed, so there's a pre-blast notification, which would be that phone call if you're on the list. Otherwise, they generally do 3 horns, 5 minutes before the blast, 2 horns, 2 minutes before the blast, and 1 horn immediately after the blast. The blasting time frame contractually is allowed between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. In general, the contractor needs a couple hours to prep for that blast before they can actually do it. So it'll typically be between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Usually there's 2 a day, one usually right around 11, one around 2, but it's not going to work like clockwork. It'll be as the contractor's available and able to do it. So what happens if there's any damage to your property during construction, whether it's from blasting or otherwise? In general, you're going to want to reach out to Roy Babylon over here, our on-site representative. The initial step he'll do is he'll document your complaint. He'll deliver a copy of that complaint to you guys also, and we'll have a copy. We will routinely look through these with both the contractor, Wright Pierce, and the city. And then generally, if it's something that cannot be resolved near immediately, then it'll kind of go up the chain to Severino, and they'll move forward the next step in the process. If it's something with blasting, for example, it's one of their subcontractors, so there'll be some communication involved with that also. And then for just general communication throughout the project. Go to the next slide, please.
Working on it.
Okay. No worries.
I think you need to click on the presentation itself.
Move for the next slide. That's
Okay,
not
Andrew.
what's been. There we go.
There we go. So you guys are probably generally aware there's already a project website for this. So we have the link in this PowerPoint. This PowerPoint is posted to the project website routinely. If you can't get to this link immediately, you can type in Sagamore Ave Sewer Extension Project in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and that will come up in Google or Bing or any other standard search browser. There's a sign-up list on the project website, so you can get routine emails and a 2-week schedule look-ahead. In general, that 2-week look-ahead schedule is the week 1 is expected to be pretty accurate. Week 2 is less accurate and just kind of giving people a general idea of who might be impacted, what areas might be impacted 2 weeks ahead. Again, the main contacts are either Roy Babylon, or if it's for specific communication and project information on the website, then it'll be Zach Cronin. And as we mentioned earlier, there's a sign-in sheet up front here. Looks like we filled up the first one. And Terry's writing another one right now. So if you haven't had a chance to sign in yet, please sign in up front. It'd be much appreciated. And at that point, we will jump into some of the frequently asked questions. And so some of the residents were already nice enough to send some of the questions in ahead of time, and we'll run through those questions first, and then we'll leave it open to either the crowd here or the folks online. Do you want me to read these, or do you want to read them off, Terry?
You're going through them, right?
Yeah, okay. So notification process to the residents. We have been putting routine updates on the project website for this. We have used the email list to reach out to residents. There is a way to sign up for the email list on the project website, and we highly recommend everybody do. It keeps you involved in the project as well as up to date. Throughout, we've used the weekly newsletter as well. Have had like the signboard that has been on Sagamore Ave to notify of this project. But the best way to get notifications on this project are the regular emails from the email list. That is held on MailChimp, and we update it with anybody who wants to be on that can be on that. The plan for blasting notification, I believe we've answered that previously.
Yeah, but again, it's call Christopher Scott at Main Drilling and Blasting. They'll be the actual person on site performing blasting. They're professionals at this. This is what they do for a living. If you want to be notified before the blasts, tell them. They have a list going, and they will notify you ahead of time. Otherwise, again, it's the horns. That's what you want to pay attention for on site.
So blasting, will it be held off? Oh,
Sorry, real quick, Kevin, so it applies to the entire area, right? Did you guys do the blasts, you did the whole project, correct?
Correct, yes, yeah.
North and
So
south.
we don't know exactly where the excavation versus blasting is
Just
going to be
south.
at this
Or
moment.
just north.
But for the north side here, they did a pre-blast survey to cover the entire area just in case. So it doesn't mean that you'll necessarily have blasting right in front of your property, but we have to follow through with the process just in case you do.
So blasting will be held off until pre-blast surveys are completed. Severino and Main Drilling and Blasting are in the process of reaching out to all the residents and creating the list of the properties that want to have the pre-blast surveys. Could you guys describe that process?
The survey itself?
Yes.
Well, kind of like what Kevin said, yeah, they'll go into your property, take pictures of anything that is concerning to you or existing conditions inside and outside, so that if there is a claim that comes up, they can kind of compare, before and after photos and things like that.
And they do plan to hold off on blasting until everyone that has requested a pre-blast survey has had them completed. Again, they need your permission to access your properties, so they're not going to necessarily wait if someone says you can't come on their property. But they sent out certified mails to everybody already. So if you've not received a mailing yet, also it's something you should be reaching out to Maine Blasting and Drilling about, drilling and blasting, excuse me.
So the radon testing and mitigation process, we have, that is part of Severino's contract to test for radon in the properties that wish to have radon tested in the project area. I know you guys have explained the process to Wright Pierce. It is going in and putting a meter to detect for a day, and then coming back and collecting it to determine the amount of radon that exists currently. And then after the project, they would then repeat that process to see if anything had increased the amount of radon.
And again, as far as mitigation, the blasting company, this is what they do for a living, so they try to size their blast accordingly to the situation at heart. They're not going out there with a sledgehammer for every situation, so that's the main mitigation process is, they hired technical experts to try and do this work.
So, like we had said before, if construction causes damage to my property, who do I call? Your immediate person to call is Roy Babylon. He's going to be on site and be able to take a look at whatever damage may happen. Some other questions we received are there plans to widen Sagamore Ave to accommodate bicyclists? Not at this time. This is a sewer project at the moment. This project is to install sewer. There are plans to rebuild sidewalks on Sagamore Ave. One of the adults, we included replacement of the sidewalk on the southbound lane on Sagamore Ave North. Should funding allow, we can incorporate that into the project. And then why does the project alignment extend all the way to the marina and VG's Boathouse? That is the extent of our original consent decree with the EPA and New Hampshire DES. It was the original scope that was agreed to in 2016 as part of the project.
Why wouldn't it extend to us? Because we pay taxes and we have a house and a restaurant. Why wouldn't it?
It was just a question we received, so we're just trying to respond to the question, that's all.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm not sure what, if we could just, we'll finish this up, and then we're going to go right into other questions related to that. And it sounds like there might be some confusion based on how you just asked that, so let's try to clear it up. Okay, thank you.
A number of properties north and south of the creek used in design. We were using number of connections. So there are 64 connections on the north side of the creek and 27 on the south. They were used in the design of the project. The flow for future projects or properties included an analysis and any known future developments. Any future developments that would happen need to go through zoning requirements, the technical advisory committee process, as well as the planning board. As part of that process, a licensed professional engineer needs to state the proposed usage of water and sewer and evaluate the sewer system and water mains to determine if they're capable of servicing the project. If they are insufficient, the developer is responsible to improve the utilities in the ground. So we do not have any known future developments. There have been two that have come up through this during this process. We did begin speaking about the project in 2019, so we have had a fairly lengthy process, but they were unknown and have gone through the technical advisory committee, planning board, and any zoning requirements. Minimum and maximum number of hookups that are able to be taken by the sewer, as well as any flushing. So the number of connections is not the determining factor on the sewer. It is the proposed use of each building. So it is very difficult to state how many connections can be put on. Any new developments that would be put on, again, need to go through the technical advisory committee, planning board, and the zoning process. I know there are some concerns that a few number of connections will happen at the beginning of the project. There's a low-pressure sewer that was installed around the roundabout in Rye on Sagamore Ave that has very few connections, and there have been no complaints from that on any of the sewer's function. Where does the sewer north and south of the creek flow? So the sewer north of the creek, this project would discharge into a sewer manhole around the Tidewatch condos, flow up Sagamore Ave till it reaches Miller, travels down Miller, over Richards Ave, Parrott Ave, underneath the Parrott Ave lot, over to Marcy Street and the Mechanic Street pump station. The sewer flows south of the creek, travels south to, I believe it's Odeon Point Road, down to Gosport Road to the Gosport pump station, or the Tidewatch pump station, sorry, it's just on
Tucker's Cove.
Tucker's Cove.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of names. The Tucker's Cove pump station located on Gosport Road. It travels over to Elwyn Road, through the Urban Forestry Center, that sewer main there, up Lafayette Road to the Lafayette Road pump station, where it is then pumped farther up Lafayette Road, down Willard Ave, over to Lincoln, and Richards Ave, where it meets up with the flow I'd previously stated. But all sewage in Portsmouth does eventually reach the Mechanic Street pump station, where it's pumped to the wastewater treatment plant on Pierce Island. Does the city plan to rectify polluters along Lafayette Road and Banfield, or the city dump? We have a number of projects that we've worked on upstream of Sagamore Creek. We have the stormwater, stormwater treatment system behind the DPW. There's a stormwater treatment system the DOT put in up on Lafayette Road near Tor Gulf. We have, excuse me, I have a little bit of backup. We've improved the culverts underneath Banfield Road to improve any stormwater there, as well as the Jones Ave landfill. There are monitoring wells on that property. Previously, we had done every 6 months sampling on those. Due to inactivity, that has been changed to once a year per our DES requirements. We are monitoring that yearly, and it is not having any significant effect on the creek. So this project is one of the many items that we're working on to protect Sagamore Creek.
Just for some additional background, we had a firm go out and do some testing in the actual creek itself in a number of different locations. It was one of the consent decree requirements that we agreed to for the consent decree that we have. All that data was used in the state's last update of water quality conditions for the creek. There are some additional impairments in there for dissolved oxygen and nitrogen. So as a result of that, because we have what's called the MS4 permit now, which is a stormwater permit. It's a municipal separate storm sewer system MS4 permit. There's requirements in there that we follow up on discharges in these types of areas where you have what's called an impaired water body. So we are following through a process of, it's called illicit discharge detection. We go out there and we have to measure both during no rain as well as during rain to see what the different conditions are of water quality of the outlets discharging into the creek. And then if there's something in there that meets a certain trigger, we have to follow that upstream and try and find its source. So there's a lot of stuff that the city's doing as it relates to overall, stormwater controls and pollution from that level.
At this point, we will take pre-construction questions. We ask that you come up to the microphone and state your name as well as
Address. So, yeah, or if you're not comfortable coming up to the microphone, we can repeat your question. We just have to, it's getting recorded, so we'd like to just make sure everyone can hear it. So this one's related to the construction side of it, the sewer in the roadway. We will be going into a separate part of the presentation to talk about all the private side work. So from the edge of the road up to the houses after this, and then we'll have a separate Q&A related to that as well.
ML Geffert, 272 Walker Bungalow Road. Just a quick question about the blasting survey. The letter said that we had to get in touch with Maine drilling and blasting by the 22nd of April. It's the 27th. How long do people have to get in touch to get those pre-blast surveys conducted on their private property? Just so that I can tell my neighbors.
Yeah, well, when they sent those out, I think they give people like 10 days to respond. We need them as soon as possible, because we can't really start any work until those surveys are done, just to keep you protected and us protected as well, so.
By Friday, by Thursday, just give
Yeah, Friday, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
I mean, I think you should continue calling even after their permits issued. They have to show that they've done due diligence to get as many surveys as they can. So once there is reasonable due diligence done, we can issue the permit. It doesn't mean that you have to stop your request to have the survey done. I mean, you can still call, so I would say that the message to your neighbors is continue to call if they're interested in getting a survey. And thank you for passing along the message. We appreciate it.
Hi, Mark Rogers, 24 Shaw Road. I have a follow-up question with Maine Blasting and Drilling. They're going to be on the property taking pictures. The homeowner's getting copies of those pictures?
You can request copies, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Will we be charged?
Excuse me?
Will we be charged for those copies?
So the question was whether or not the homeowner will be charged for copies of the pre-blast survey if requested.
Yeah, I don't believe so, no.
Alden Suite 72 Walker Bungalow. Question I got about the pre-blast is, if we decide not to hook up, my septic tank is about 20 feet from the road. If they're blasting in the road, what assurances do I have that that blasting is not going to damage that tank? And the only time I'm going to be able to figure that out is when Alden Filbert comes to pump it the next time and there's nothing in it. How's the city going to address that?
So you said it's about 20 feet?
Mm-hmm.
What would you guys do for, from a blasting design standpoint and vibration
And
monitoring?
we'll have vibration monitoring set up as well. They'll have monitors, stationed throughout where the blast area is and record, what those monitors are. As far as your tank goes, I guess they can only inspect what they can see, so they'll pop the cover, look and see, as best they can, as long as you let them know that it is there. And I can follow up with them if they've had another instance like that, if they've done anything different.
And I think what Mark said is the important part. So if anybody has a particular unique circumstance at their property, it's worthwhile as you go and you work with the pre-blast company that you point that out, because that's the kind of stuff that they, as Mark said, you can't see it, they don't know. So if you can point those things out, we can try and get in front of that and have that addressed.
Also, in the front of the yard, there's irrigation, which is even closer to the road than the tank. Does blasting normally interfere with that?
Typically not. I don't think I've ever had an issue come up with irrigation, but if it does, then we'll take care of that as well.
Thank you.
Some of these things that you're talking about will actually help us move forward with whether we would blast that anyways. If we're running into this in 3 consecutive yards, we might have to slow down, not blast, and take more time to pre-drill it, basically perforate the rock. If it's going to get more expensive to start replacing septic tanks and irrigation systems, it's going to help us direct our crews on which way to go. So that's why the pre-blast survey is so important. It kind of gives us a direction in which way to go and how much damage would be done if something was to happen,
Yeah, and just to let everybody know too, there is ledge on site, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to blast every inch of it. If it's low enough or it's close to the grade that we need to be, we might just hoe ram it instead. The only thing that we'll blast is anything that's substantially high to the ground or high to the roadway, which it doesn't make it feasible to hoe ram. So there may be areas that they're going to pre-drill, and that helps us instead of hammering a solid piece of rock. If they pre-drill and kind of perforate a little bit, the hoe ramming goes a lot faster and is less vibration. So there may be a whole section of road or a certain section of road where you'll see them drilling, but they'll just drill down the road and they won't blast. We'll come behind and hoe ram and take the ledge out that way. So it isn't necessarily blasting every inch of the road.
And that's our preferred method. Typically, we try and avoid blasting because of water mains. There's not a lot of gas services out there, but typically if there's a gas service, we end up not trying to blast, and the same with water. We're not going out there to replace all new water mains, so that's usually the closest thing to the sewer, you know, it's usually within 10 feet of, they run parallel to each other. So we really try to avoid blasting at all costs, but I can't say we're not going to at all, so.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Roger Greeley, 71 Cliff Road. I have two questions. One, I am looking forward to working with Ray here. Is right?
Roy?
Roy, sorry, Roy. Are you going to have a trailer?
Yes, yep, there'll be a construction.
Where will that be
trailer.
located?
It's on Richie's property, I believe, right?
910 Sagamore
Yeah,
Ave.
910 Sagamore, 912 Sagamore Ave. It's down, I guess they call it Sagamore Ave
The
West.
dirt road adjacent to the
So behind the scuba shop?
yeah, behind the
Yes,
scoop
yes,
shop.
yep.
Yes.
Okay,
It'll be kind of tucked out of the way, so you'll have to look for it, but,
yeah,
you know, if you want to meet there for a specific reason, just give me a call. and
yeah.
I'll meet
Well, I
you
know
there.
now where to go find you. Yeah,
You should see me on site.
okay.
And we have, just, sorry, not to mean to cut you off on your second question, but we have right there on the edge of that table our contact list for all the important people, so we'll pass those out in a moment.
Okay. My second question is, there is a pond wetland halfway down Walker Bungalow, as you probably know. Tell me about that a little bit. I mean, obviously, it's a wetland sensitive area. It happens to be in my backyard, basically, or right across from my backyard. So are you gonna be below the water level there?
So as far as the wetland, I mean, we have erosion control and requirements like that from the standpoint of, because we're going to be excavating, or, well, the contractor will, they're going to be excavating down below. They will be below the level if there's groundwater that comes out and is in the trench, just like any construction, we excavate against a lot of different waterways. They have to handle the water that's in the trench. And that has to be controlled as well. So you can't, it's not like we'll be just discharging it into
My backyard?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So how below grade will you be?
We're down four to 5 feet.
Yeah, 5 feet to the bottom of the trench typically,
Okay.
from the existing roadway.
So so you're going to be you're going to be below water level at the high water level. Maybe you may get lucky and have a
And
dry August.
possibly in rock too,
Yeah.
which helps
Helps
to
keep
some
it
degree
from
control
getting in
water.
there. Yeah. So where would you pump that?
It'll have to be pumped to a controlled basin so that it runs off in a normal fashion of any runoff after turbidity is taken down. So these guys will have to submit to the consultants who are overseeing the job erosion sedimentation controls, they're called, in order to comply with the permit, which is issued by the state and the city, to make sure that type of concern is controlled.
So it goes into the natural watershed?
It'll have to be relatively in sight. They're not going to pump it into a tank and take it off site.
And
So-
I'm not opposed to it. In certain situations, we will do that. We'll put it in our water
Okay.
truck and disperse of it, but
But
depends on the
You
volume.
might use silt bags to just
Yeah, we
contain the
carry
sediment,
some,
so there won't be any sediment running out of it, and just the clean water will be running through the
Okay.
waterway, so.
So I'll just go back to the pond. So there's probably, you feel, what is going to be the impact on that pond?
I know where you're speaking of. I don't think, other than the one culvert that crosses the road, if that created an underground flow around the pipe, I don't think it's going to be, you're going to have impervious dirt on both sides. That's what's creating the wetland. Our trench, we're trying to keep to 5 feet wide. So
Yeah, if the road was, if it was a sand pit, then we'd get infiltration, but because of the type of material that's there, it acts as a barrier.
Okay.
And if it gets to the point that it is causing a problem, they have to stop and we have to regroup on the approach. I mean, that's the typical situation if it got to that point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. We have online, someone on Zoom that's going to ask a question. Go ahead, Jay.
Hi, thank you. I'm Jay Kuchar. I'm representing Seacoast Mental Health Center at 1145 to 1149 Sagamore Avenue. And I had a couple of questions. I didn't get a letter for the blasting for this project, so I'm assuming you think it's not going to impact us. But I did get one for the project across the street. Are the blasting for the condo project and the sewer project going to overlay each other at all, or are they being segregated so people won't have double blasting impact?
So one of those is a private project that has a separate permit, Jay. And the one that we have, the reason you didn't get, you would have not gotten a pre-blast survey request is because you're outside of the influence zone. So even if they were occurring at the same time, we wouldn't expect that you'd have any overlapping influence from the blast.
And then I apologize if
She's
I
for the
missed
project.
this at the beginning of the presentation, but what is the expected date of completion for those of us who are on the south side of the bridge?
So, so right now, if you missed the beginning part, there's the only thing that's under contract officially is the north side of the creek.
Right, I saw that, but you have an estimated plan. I mean, I've been at Seacoast now for 30 years, and we used to have an agreement that when Tucker's Cove was constructed, we would get a sewer connection, but once the land was made into conservation land, that became null and void, so we are anxious.
Sure. So as far as the process here, we have money proposed in the fiscal year 23 CIP, which begins July 1 of this year, for the south side of the project, and that's subject to approval with the city council. So assuming that the budget gets passed and nothing gets impacted on the CIP side, we'll be in front of the city council in either July or August to talk about funding the south side work. And then that would go into next construction season likely, because right now they have to finish the work on the north side by December of this year. So unless they end up completing that much earlier and the whole progression of awarding that portion and the timing works out that they can start earlier, it's likely that it would start next year, next April.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a couple of questions, please. Joan Griffin, 75 Walker Bungalow Road. You just said it's going to be a 5-foot wide trench. Is that, the road is probably about 6 feet wide. What's a 5-foot wide trench? You know, so we're not going to be able to get by this thing. It's going to come down the center of the road 5 feet wide?
Walker Bungalow, it'll be off to the east side, and it'll be filled in each night as well. It's not going to be left open. What we plan to do is, Monday through Thursday, install pipe, backfill as we go, and then on Fridays, set back and put temporary pavement down, so that, it'll be drivable, for the weekend, and we'll be out of your hair for the weekend. But it will be off to one side, depending on what other utilities we encounter in the road. There is a water main out there, but as it looks now, it'll just be to the east side.
The east side, meaning towards Sagamore?
No.
Away.
Yeah.
West side.
And we kind of have to keep at least like 12 feet of width on the road, whether we gravel off the edge of the pavement for emergency vehicles and stuff. So most cars can get through there. I mean, sometimes it might take us 10 minutes to piece something together, but we have to maintain at least a lane of traffic, not only for our own trucks, but for emergency vehicles. So
And the road will be open and usable at the end of every construction day. It's just during construction, during the work day, that is when excavation happens, but at the end of every day, it does get backfilled, and there is passability after the construction work day.
So the whole of Walker Bungalow Road, the trench is going to be east of the center of the road?
yes. So the new water main they put in would be the west side. I think a couple years ago, 5 years ago, they installed the water main. It's the opposite side of the road. So out towards, I think it's the east side, more towards the bay and.
Towards the ocean.
Yeah.
And just to add under that's required by the state. We're supposed to have a special offset from the existing water main, so it has to be in that area of the road.
Yeah, they have to maintain 10 feet of separation, so.
So how far into the side of the road is it actually going to go?
Well, there's an existing water main, abandoned water main in that same location. So that's, as we excavate, it might change a foot or two, but you should have that whole west side lane, other than when we cut across for a service. So, and the trench is gonna be 5 feet wide. Typical excavator is 12. So the excavator is actually gonna take up more room than the trench itself, so.
Whose water mains are you moving?
There's only water services, and they're all the ones on the, or not all of them, there's a few houses on the west side of Sagamore itself, because there's actually 2 water mains that run down the west side and the east side of Sagamore. So we have to we're abandoning the east side, and we have to extend those copper water services all the way over to the west side. So that'll allow room for the sewer and the 10-foot, rule of separation, so.
That's on Sagamore?
Yeah, and those people will typically be noticed 72 hours in advance.
72
and-
working hours, working
Yeah,
days.
And the DPW will be with us and make sure they actually do all their own testing and stuff, so. And that we won't do it in a manner in which it shouldn't, minimal effect. We can schedule it around those people affected by water,
It's less than 10 property owners too. I don't have the exact number, but it's.
And they're all on Sagamore?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're mostly between Cliff and
Tide Watch.
even before Tide Watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cliff and Tide Watch, I think, is where 5, 6, maybe 10, but. Yeah. So.
Could you please, again, describe the flow out of the area, the way this is going? I mean, I loved hearing, that my waste is gonna go on this wonderful trip all the way through Portsmouth, but how is it getting out of Walker Bungalow Road?
So it goes from Walker Bungalow at Little Harbor, down Walker Bungalow towards Shaw, along Shaw to Sagamore, up Sagamore towards Miller.
It starts at your house, wherever it's.
Mine's the first house on
Then yes.
my side of the road.
Yes.
And it's gonna flow. all
Down
the way
Walker
the
Bungalow
hill.
to Shaw, down Shaw, then on Sagamore, up top of the hill. and
Away from the creek.
Away from the creek.
Yep. And then,
Big U.
yep,
Yes.
big U,
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
cursive. Go ahead.
Clyde Logue, 27 Shaw Road. I got to say, I'm really excited about the project, so that's a good thing. Question, you mentioned a culvert. So did you say there was a culvert near the pond? Or were you
I
just?
believe there is.
Yeah, there's a culvert that actually carries water from the cliff area. I don't know exactly where it begins, towards the pond.
Yeah, I don't think it's a large culvert.
Well,
It's just,
towards
it's
the
more
other
like a
wetland.
baffle that controls the level of the water. You would probably know better than anybody if it actually moves, right?
The Hedgehog condo.
Yeah.
There's overflow that comes off of the hill into my neighbors, and then goes under Cliff Road into my side yard, and then down towards the pond.
Yeah. I've looked at it a few times driving around. It seems more.
It goes into Roger's backyard. I'm Sheridan Lloyd, 45 Cliff Road. We're right next to Roger. It goes into Roger's backyard. But you have to understand, the west side of Walker Bungalow flows in the opposite direction of the east side where the pond is. The west side flows down to Sagamore Creek. The east side ends up flowing towards the cemetery and goes out that direction. The two sides of the street are not connected.
Well, that was what you just said. There's a culvert between the two sides of the
It's a
street.
very small culvert, I believe.
Yeah, and that culvert does not go to the pond, is not connected.
No.
But where Clive's house is, there is a culvert from the west side, where this other culvert is. It goes through Roger's yard, through our.
Yeah.
yard.
I was more concerned about this culvert though.
So just real quick, we don't intend to be making any changes to the drainage pathways. That culvert will stay in the exact elevation that it is. We're likely to be going under it, I
Yes.
assume. And the roadway will get restored to the same existing grade as it is today. So we are not changing drainage pathways as part of the project. Yes, there's temporary construction stuff, but it gets restored back to its original condition, and the culvert's not being modified.
I think there's two confusions. Because
interesting.
of Clive, there's two different culverts. There's one that's going under Cliff.
Yeah, I'm really asking a question about that one in particular, the one
And
that goes
there's one
between
that
them.
goes under Shaw Road, right by
Thanks.
his house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is this the question online?
Yes.
Or is that
Written out. I
the
believe.
same one?
It's in the chat, it looks like.
I'm not sure.
Jay, did you have another question?
Oh, no, I think I just didn't lower my hand, sorry.
Thank you.
We received one in the chat.
I'm Denise Brown, 692 Sagamore, across from Lester King. Can you show us a map tonight of the road, on what side of the road you're going to be working on for the whole project, where it zigzags around? Do you have a map that you've already?
Across from Luster King?
For the whole area, not just my house. I want to know what side of the road you're going to be working on throughout the whole project. What you're going to affect. Do you have a map already?
Yeah, we have a set of
pre-planned?
plans that are online.
Can you show it to us tonight?
Are you going to be staying for the private property portion discussion? Private
I
property
don't know
work?
anything about that, but you must have something in the computer that you could show all of us tonight where you're going to be working on the street for the whole plan. So
Anybody else interested in that?
I think everyone would be.
Can we go to the purchasing website, pull down the plans from there?
I have highlighted prints, which are a little easier to see, but they're not here.
Stephanie, would you like me to
Oh,
navigate
we
that?
need to know all this stuff, so whatever you can do to help us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody have additional questions while we're getting that information together? Pre-construction related? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jim Oliver, 14 Shaw. What is the actual size of this sewer main going into the street?
The question is, what is the size of the main? Kevin, you want to just summarize quickly what the general sizes are of the mains
Yep.
through this side?
So in general, it's going to be, for the low-pressure sewer system, a 2, 3, or 4-inch. And depending on where you are along the collector system, so if you're further back, it's a smaller pipe. So when there's fewer homes, it's a 2-inch. As you get to more homes, it's 3-inch. As you get to the very frontmost, it gets to 4-inch. There's a very small section on Sagamore Ave, about 400 or 500 feet, where it's down the steep hill. And then we put in a gravity sewer there, because we're hoping to stay above the rock and let gravity take care of that last stretch. But for the most part, it's a low-pressure sewer system, which will be generally 2-inch on the edges of it, and then 3 for the most part. And I think there may be one small stretch of 4. I can't remember if there is or not, but generally.
Run of the sewer changes diameter depending on where it's located.
Sorry, I couldn't hear it. Can you say that again?
Per flow. Yes,
So it depends on
as you get
what's alongside.
farther out towards the dead end, smaller pipe, 2-inch at the end of Walker Bungalow. As you pick up volume of houses, it changes to 3-inch. And I'm not quite sure if there was 4-inch. I think it was
I think it might just be
3-inch.
3 on this project. You're right.
3-inch all the way up to the high point on Sagamore. And then it switches to a typical 8-inch gravity.
And I think someone asked a question about the 5-foot wide trench. So it basically is probably just trench box, standard trench box width. It's a health and safety issue for their crews. They have to get down in the hole, so they need enough room for their bodies to get in there, lay it down properly, compact stone, and have a nice trench that creates a final product that's quality for the long term. So they're not going back out there a couple more years to deal with issues from poor construction. So it's both the safety issue, which is the foremost issue, and then also just to make sure they can perform quality work. I think it starts on C5 for this project.
Side.
Might be 6.
Sagamore Grove.
Yeah, this north side starts at 6.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. So I guess the quick start then. This is available on the city's website. If you guys ever want to find this again after the fact here, it's on their purchasing website. This is the same exact documents that the contractors saw when they went to bid it.
Where is it on the website?
So, I went to just the project, or the city's website, and in the search bar, I typed purchasing. The first option there is bids and proposals. I went there and then scrolled down until I found this project. which was bid in 2021. Bids received December 21st of 2021. So it's one of the last projects that are in the 2021 section.
We will add, we'll take this set of plans and we'll put it right on the Sagamore webpage so you guys can see the final, we'll call them either construction phase or, do we have conformed documents yet? We'll call them the,
Execute is what they are.
yeah, bid documents. So final design bid documents. So those are the ones that the contractor's under contract for.
Can you blow it up for us tonight a little bit and start from the beginning and take 5-10 minutes to go through that with us?
Yep. That's all I want to do.
And explain why you decided where it is, for what purpose, and what trouble you anticipate with each.
So here we have Sagamore Ave, north of Sagamore Creek. We have over on the left the final discharge. We have sewer running up the east side.
Can someone go up and point that what you're talking about? We don't know what you're talking about.
If you'd like the mic, I can get up there. If it's
Okay.
easier for you to explain.
Yeah, I'll point. Yeah, let Roger point. He got it. We need the little stick.
We need a laser pointer.
Doesn't.
Yes. So here we have the sewer main in the street.
That's as big as we can make it, I'm sorry. It will be available on the website for clarity if you want to look at it again. But that's as big as we can make it to keep it on the screen.
Thank you.
So we have the sewer main in the eastern side of the road, so the northbound lane. That's because the water main is on the west side. We need to maintain distance between the two. So it travels just down Sagamore Ave, or I guess up. And that really explains the placement of the sewer main on this entire stretch, just opposite of the water main.
Just quickly, when we talked about the direction of flow, this is the discharge point. So this is the top of the hill, so the water is flowing from the right on this to the left as you look at it.
So this is the lowest point of gravity. Here's tide watch.
Highest. Lowest.
Lowest. So this is your center line of road, this very thin black line.
It's the highest point.
No, it's the lowest one.
There's a small stretch of
Comes up a
gravity.
hill, this is the high point, so that's where they stopped their gravity. This dashed line is your forced sewer main,
So is
because
that
it has
the
to go.
center of the road where your finger is right now?
This is sewer, that's center of the road, so they're running it approximately 6 feet. So it's gonna be dead center of this travel lane, give or take a few feet.
Like my stone wall that's there, is that gonna be blown up completely?
No, we're still trying to avoid blasting, so we're preparing for the worst, hoping for the best.
And again, when
the
the
pre-blast survey is so important.
when you do the pre-blast survey, all those things should be pointed out so that they can pay attention to it, and if needed, they take special precautions for confirming vibrations.
And when they say they're gonna fix it, who's fixing it?
That's me.
Your insurance company, is that what you're saying is gonna
We,
fix it?
we cover most of it, we are fully insured, but
And we don't have to
between me
pay
and Roy, we'll,
deductible or anything? We are 100%?
yeah, as long as you get on the pre-blast survey and it's, yeah, if there's a crack in your driveway there before, we're gonna try and we're not gonna go on your private property without consent, and anything that's ruined is covered as long as it's, we have a track record of, cracked driveways and stuff. It's,
Is the front of my wall was hurt by a drunk driver, 15 years ago, and it cost $24,000 to replace that wall? And that's something you would cover? That fell
Well,
apart?
I think the point of the pre-blast survey is to verify your existing conditions. So these guys are going to be doing work there. Right now, they don't know if they're excavating or they're blasting. So if the condition of the wall is such that they're concerned about it, they'll take special precautions to do extra vibration monitoring. We've blasted near, or we've had contractors blast near a lot of different walls. We've had to take special precautions if it appears that it's going to be a problem. So if there happens to be damage after the blast, right? I've seen people use tape, all kinds of things to actually document existing cracks in walls versus new. They need to measure all that, and that's part of that pre-blast process. If there's damage, that's when we have to go through the process of documenting the damage, confirming that it is, and when I say we, it's them and their group that does the pre-blast and the insurance companies, but confirming that it was actually an issue that occurred during the course of their work. And if that, as he was saying, if it is something that's confirmed to be done during the course of work, they cover it through an insurance process. So, and that gets fixed, or sometimes I think you guys fix it directly, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there are cracks in it already, but over time, but if there are more cracks in it, how much are you prepared to fix?
I mean, I guess the bottom line is if we damage it, we fix it. And I mean, just like a car, car crash, that's why we have insurance. That's why Main Drilling and Blasting has insurance. If it's caused due to blasting, then Main Drilling and Blasting's insurance company will come out. They'll review your wall or whatever it is. They'll look at the pre-blast survey, and then they'll come up with a decision on that. If it's something that we do through the course of construction, the same thing happens with our insurance company. If it's something that can be fixed on site, we'll take care of it ourselves. If it gets to be a certain amount of money, then obviously the insurance company needs to come in and take care of it at that point.
So you would kind of baby your way around down the street or wherever?
Yeah, I mean, there have been instances where, people have had, decorative walls or, certain things that are.
Thanks, everybody.
that are difficult to work around. The blasting, if we end up blasting, they can reduce their blast, they can shorten up their blast pattern and do smaller blasts, to help with the vibration. There are certain things that we can do to avoid, certain situations like that.
Do you think we
So
should?
as we carry on here, the sewer stays on the same side of the roadway, on the cliff side of the roadway, around the center line of the main, or center line of the lane, all the way down to Shaw. So, and this is Cliff here. On Cliff, it stays towards the creek side of that roadway, down Cliff, and then the beginning of Shaw. And the reason I'm telling you this right now and all these different ones is the way these things all patch together gets kind of confusing. So, on the Shaw side, we stay on the opposite side of the creek, on that roadway.
Do you think in the interest of the presentation, we should probably do this at the end? We can.
How many people are interested in this portion of the presentation?
I'd like to see the original presentation about the private side.
I think we'll kind of move on.
Yeah, but the private side is next, and there is a fair amount of information on there that I would like to get to. Is it possible if we reconvene on this after? Great, I appreciate that.
Thank you, I appreciate your showing us.
And I'm always available. My number's on that contact list. If I'm a paper, I can't look at that. I have no problem meeting you out there with Roy, and we can, the highlighted plans, I gotta color code everything. I can't. There's 50 black lines on there. I can't. I have a hard time distinguishing, so. I put the green one where the sewer goes and the blue, so.
Hold escape? Yeah, because we hid that bar earlier.
When I'm going in and out to meetings.
We'll help you with that.
The other PowerPoint. The new share? That one.
Bring your brownies.
There.
I'll eat them.
I promise.
Okay.
You may need to click anywhere in the presentation then. All right.
Okay, moving on to, we'll catch that section after. Moving on to this next section on the private property work. Stephanie, if you could go to the next slide. So you might remember that we had a cost-sharing proposal that was submitted to the City Council at the conclusion of our discussions. That's shown here again in terms of what it was. So I'll just walk you quickly through what the different parts and pieces are of the schematic that's in front of you. So starting from the left-hand side, we're showing the house. In order to actually, let me start from the roadway because we were just talking about the roadway construction. So as we talked about the stuff that is currently under contract, it is the portion of this that sits on the right-hand side. So it's the public sewer main and the sewer lateral.
Can you stand up and show that?
I got it. Go ahead.
I don't know where you're pointing to.
Public sewer main, sewer lateral, and the curb stop. So that's the limits of the work that along the entire project area on the north that Severino is currently contracted to do. So we did, as part of the bids, we went through, and you might recall that we asked anybody who was interested in a design and a cost to come to us so that we could get that included in the project bids, so we could have real pricing. So we did that. We had on the order of 65 properties out of both areas that said, hey, we want to design so we can get a cost. So that stuff has been included in what we have from Severino. So what that includes is all the stuff to the right of the to the right of this, to the left, looking at different sides here, to the left of this line here, in terms of construction. Now, there was a cost-sharing proposal for that. So you need to connect, again, a small pipe to the curb stop in the street, or at the edge of the roadway, rather, and that goes over. Everybody's yard is very different. You know, it weaves its way. It could be longer, it could be shorter. It might go across stone walls. It might go through irrigation. There's all kinds of stuff those are the variables that we have for costs. And then it goes to the pump. So this is the low-pressure pump station, which is shown over to the right, on the right of the schematic, in terms of what it actually is. And then we have to connect that pump to the house, which that is a gravity connection from the house to the pump. That's usually a 6-inch or a 4-inch diameter pipe, depending on the property. And then in order to accommodate this, because it is a pump, has electrical, there may or may not be needs for a couple of other items, including additional electrical work. So we were able to capture that for the properties that asked us for a design. And the other thing is the cost for any kind of plumbing reroutes. If we had to reroute plumbing from where the existing septic pipe went to this new location for the pump station. So for those that asked, we tried to capture all those in the design, and we will in the next couple weeks be as soon as we can, distributing that information to each property owner that asked for it. So the cost proposal was included the city paying for everything in the roadway, which is the work that's currently under contract. The cost for the pump, the connection from the pump to the house, as well as any ancillary work that need to be done to execute that connection. So plumbing reroutes, electrical upgrades or improvements, and then the abandoning of the existing septic. The cost, the city would pay up front for the cost of the service, but we're proposing that would be repaid to the city. And we had a couple different options to do that. That portion could be repaid either through a 10-year no-interest loan, or if someone elected to, they could pay up front for those costs. So that's where we were at the conclusion. If you go to the next slide, Stephanie.
Okay. Can I ask just a quick clarifying? The costs, when you say that, you mean the pump connection part or the private sewer lateral?
So the repayment portion?
Yeah.
Would be the cost for this, which is
okay.
the installation of Kevin, what do we forget?
1 1/4.
Yeah.
Generally, there could be some larger properties.
So, So for the normal connection, it's a 1 1/4 inch diameter, high density polyethylene pipe. It's like one of those ones you see rolled up in a big roll. And then there's the restoration costs associated with that section, and that's where we have variables. So it's distance, really, that the pipe itself is not actually that expensive. It comes down to the labor to put it in, whether there's a lot of ledge, whether there's stone walls, irrigation to repair, all those other ancillary items. So, and we have unit items for each one of those, and that's what we're gonna consolidate and send out to people. Next slide, please.
But you pay for everything in yellow, and you're saying electric and everything that you do to our house?
So each property is different in terms of its needs.
I just had a couple of years ago everything, all the plumbing in my cellar redone. So you would come in and hook up and redo my pipes and everything as part of the city's cost?
Did you request a design?
Not yet.
Okay. We need to look at your property. So in terms of the next slide here, the finished installation, people were very concerned about what the impact this is. So we had pictures of some existing ones that were completed. So the one on the left, you see there's where that big blue arrow is, that's actually one of the covers. to the unit, so that stays exposed because you have to have access to it. And then just behind that, there's like a tiny little box, which you can't see very well, but there's another one shown over here to the right. That tiny box is the electrical panel. It's also the alarm panel that goes with this unit. And to the left of that is an electrical service for that particular property. So you can kind of get a sense of what it looks like in terms of size.
I'm sorry, quick question. You said there's a part that's going to be exposed and left exposed in our yards?
Yeah, so in here, that is what's exposed. It's, what diameter is it, Kevin? 24 inch?
About 2 feet across.
24-inch diameter cover.
So on the side of my yard, there's going to be a cover sticking out of the yard.
Flush. Typically, it's flush mounted. They're green, maybe not the same exact color as your grass, but.
And I can't put grass on it? No.
No, you cannot.
Okay.
Next, please. So just from the standpoint of looking at, we had to come up with an idea on how to implement this project. Obviously, we're at the point now where we have the contractor in place. We have not gotten confirmation from everyone on who actually wants to connect. So really what we have now is pricing for 65 out of the 88 or 91 connections that we have in the whole area. We also understand that some people might be interested in this now. Maybe they don't. Maybe they want to consider a future connection. So we want to try and work all those out. In terms of the properties that are interested in possibly connecting, we had to identify kind of a priority, because right now in the capital improvement plan, there's only so much money right now that we have available, and we understand that we want to connect as many people as possible, but we had to establish some level of priority because the funds might be limited time-wise. Over time, I think we can capture everything we need to. So the way that, sorry, if I could finish the presentation, I will absolutely answer your question. So the way that we are doing this currently is, first on that list is properties with holding tanks. And I know we had people that asked, there was some folks, thank you very much for sending questions in advance. So I know people were concerned about that. The reason that we have the holding tanks is that there was a number of properties who went to the Department of Environmental Services and said, hey, we don't want to put in a brand new septic system because we know there's a sewer project coming. They were granted tanks, holding tanks, so basically a septic tank with no leach field that they have to pump out regularly on the condition that the sewer project was eventually going to be there and they'd connect. So with DS's approval, they were able to do that temporarily. We have 2 on the north side, 1 on the south side. So it's not a lot of properties. Next is what I believe should be obvious, which are failed septic systems. After that, there's a DES provision that basically stipulates that if it's older than 1985, you should be connected to a sewer or replace it. So it's I wish it was clearer. It's a should be. Yeah. So those would be on the next level of priority, and then lastly, owner requested.
Have people indicated to you that they have failed septic systems?
We have a few, mostly on the south side, but if there's I can't say off the top of my head how many we have, and I don't think anybody's come to us and said we have failed septic system. That doesn't mean that they don't. It doesn't mean that we don't know, but we again, this is just a matter of identifying priority for those to connect. So from the standpoint of funding, we've talked on and off that we have these funds available through the capital improvement plan. So there's a CIP element sheet, and I apologize it's not written on here, but we can attach that to the website as well.
Didn't include as the last slide after everything.
Okay, we'll
else,
grab
if we
that
do
after.
bring it up.
But that CIP element sheet, what we did is it was to fund just the private side work. And as as we look at this, we have to pay for everything up front because that's where we're contracted with the contractor. And then it's a repayment for the private property owner's portion. So what we did is over the next 6 years, actually it spans 7 years total. So in fiscal year 22, we got $300,000, which has already been approved by the city council. So we have $300,000 to go towards these connection costs. In fiscal year 23, which is July 1, 22, We have proposed $450,000. And then between fiscal year '24 and fiscal year '28, it ranges between, it's mostly 450, but it's 350 in fiscal year '28. The total cost there is nothing more than the cost for all the private side work that we have in the bids. So what we really want to do over the next couple months before July of this year is to try and get a better sense of how many people actually want to connect. So the more that we know that want to connect, the better we can plan for the CIP funding. If we have to adjust fiscal year '24, we can always ask the council and bring them up to speed on where we're at. I don't know if they'll approve that or not, but it's an opportunity that still exists. But we can't do that unless we know exactly how many people are going to connect and how much we have to fund in order to capture those costs. So that's going to be something that we do in the near future. And one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to take what was provided to us already. There's 65 homes that have asked for design. We're going to take those designs. We're going to break down the costs associated with the design as a total. We'll break down the cost that's the city portion. We'll break down the cost that would be the private property owner's responsibility, either upfront or through that loan. And then we'll send that to each of the property owners to help, and then at that point you can call Zach, you can call me, call Kevin. We can work through any of your questions as it relates to the individual costs, because I know everyone doesn't do this every day. So we can kind of walk through what that looks like. So that's an important thing that we'll be doing over the next couple months, so please keep an eye out for that information. And so that is really for the folks that already have a design. That brings us to the next ones, which would be those who wish to connect in the future. We will talk about that in just one more slide. So as we looked at the overall costs, we wanted to provide you with a summary. So Stephanie, if you could jump to the next slide. One back, please. Thank you. So the price that was received in December of 2021, which was, this is just for the private property work again. So we, just to remind everyone, we got a cost to build the north side sewer in the road, the south side sewer in the road, the north side private side work for the houses that asked for it, and then the south side private side work for the houses that asked for it. If you add up the north and the south side private side work, it's $2.734 million. We have to carry contingencies just because sometimes the costs come in a little bit higher. So we generally do that at 5% after a bid. That's a total cost of $2.87 million and change. We had 65 properties, and that leaves an average cost, just doing the math, of $44,200. And that breaks down generally, and I say generally, that the city's portion of that would be about $28,000. So that's, again, the pump, connection to the house, electrical, if needed, plumbing if needed, septic conversion.
Abandonment of the septic as well.
Yep. And then the property owner, on average, is $16,200. So the reason that we need to send you guys a breakdown is because, again, that private property portion is different for every property. So the length of the service impacts the cost. Everything that is impacted in that length of the service, whether it's lawn, irrigation, the amount of ledge that needs to be removed, the stone walls that we have to go through, the garden beds we have to restore, driveways if we have to go through them, all those items are individually itemized. So we'll give you the best estimate we can based on the information that we have in that design to tell you what the full breakdown of this would be, so that, and then we can have a conversation with whoever wants to about that particular, their particular component.
Briefly.
Very briefly.
You're gonna repair the grass and the stone walls?
Correct.
Or we do?
No, we will as part of the contract.
Is removal of the septic system, septic tank included?
Abandonment of it. So abandonment, that's removal of the top, draining, holes in the bottom to allow for water to flow down through, and filling with sand or stone or other approved media.
And then loam and seed up top if that's what if you want. So, and then as far as we talked, talked about a lot of this. Just a reminder, there is the zero interest loan option. So that would be something that gets added to your sewer bill, not your taxes. It's under the sewer bill. And, for the cost of whatever your private property portion is, you divide that by 120, and that would be your additional monthly payment for that portion at 0% interest. And Stephanie, if you could go on to the next slide, it'll talk a little bit more about the details associated with that.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are creating with our legal department a memorandum of agreement, which would include the cost estimate, which we do have the unit prices and then estimated lengths for your property if you had done a house survey and gotten a design. That also would include any of the lien documentation. This is us paying up front and an agreement for payment over the 10 years. So that documentation would need to be in place. There is the option to pay.
Zach, could we just spend a little bit more time on that? So,
Yeah.
if there's, so with the 10-year zero interest loan, because there's a loan, there does have to be a follow through with a mortgage lien on the property, which is very common when you have a liability. Like, so if you go to sell the property, it's got to be resolved, or I don't know if a loan has to be resolved or not. I believe it does. So the lien has to go in. We will have a drafted document that will be part of that memorandum of understanding for the lien. If you elect to pay up front, then you do not have the lien portion. It just gets paid for, and it's whole, and we'll have to figure out how to do that on the memorandum of agreement. The other important part of the memorandum of agreement is allowing us access on your property to do the work. So it's an important document from the standpoint of it's the agreement between the city and the private property owner for us to be able to go on and do the work. So it's not fully, we got to get a draft together. We have to get it all ready to go. We're working on that, but that's an important document for everyone to read. Then there's the wetlands buffer agreement.
Yes, so should there be any wetland buffer impacts, there aren't any perceived wetland impacts, but as work would get done in the offset of the wetland, so we call that a buffer, it's a protected zone. So there are signatures, if there's a wetland buffer on your property, that would need to be signed as part of any of the private side work. So that would also be included in the MOA packet as well.
What if we're not?
So
then you would not need to sign.
I don't have to sign that?
Yep.
No. So there's and then in terms of the cost, so right now the cost for those who have asked for a design and a cost estimate is based on what we have for information in front of us. The stuff that becomes variable is like if you ask for a realignment, we got to recalculate those costs. So just realize that when you get it, you need to look at it, say, okay, this isn't what, maybe we messed up. Maybe we put it in a different spot than you had asked for. If you want us to look at having to realign that to change it, that may or may not change the cost because everything's an itemized change. So just be aware of that. As it relates to doing work, as I just mentioned, doing work on private property is not something we're usually not doing that a lot. So what we would do, we would have another pre-construction meeting just like this before we initiate any of that work. I'm sure people are going to have questions like, if we have to do plumbing reroutes, what's that mean? Those are a lot of details that we will want to talk with the people who are interested in connecting and get those worked out. I don't think we have to do it right now. But so we'll have another meeting like this. Just don't feel like this is the only meeting we're going to have as it relates to private side work.
Can I just ask a question? Real quick. So the costs you say that there's averages and the costs that you send us, will there be a time under which those costs are honoured? Like if we're not connecting straight away and marketing conditions
Yeah,
being rough?
it's a good question. So this is the way that we structured the agreement with the contractor is that they have to hold their costs for a certain time period. Right now, you might guess with the way things are, they don't love to hold costs for a certain time period. So in a normal time, I honestly thought that we would have been able to negotiate with Severino to hold those costs for much longer. I don't think we're going to get that kind of flexibility. So, we have that opportunity. I think it's on the order of 9 months to hold the costs. So that's why we want to find out by July how many people actually want to connect, because we'll try and capture as many as we can. And then, sorry, if I could just a little bit further, the contractor is, if the city council approves the funding and through the bonding process for the south side of this, this is just the first construction season. We'll have another construction season. We'll have the private side work ongoing. So, the longer that the contractor's here, the more likely we are to be able to capture those prices. Once the contractor gets to the point that he's completely done what we refer to as substantial completion on the all parts of this. So private side work on the north and the south, the work in the roadway on the north and the south, they're going to leave. And then there's this next slide, which is, what do we do at that time? The city's going to have to come up with another plan to actually, next slide, thank you, to actually, for those who are interested in connecting at a later date, we're going to have to come up with a plan on how to actually construct that. So at that point, the costs are subject to change, because we're either going to have to get another contractor or come up with another approach to be able to do that work. So it's in everybody's, interest from a cost standpoint to, if they're interested in connecting, now would be the time to raise their hand.
Just that the market conditions. You hire your own contractor to do the work? Does it have to go through the city? Can you hire your own contractor to work on your own private property? Or you have to go through the city to do that?
It's a good question. Let's follow up on it.
Sorry, is there a list of people who have elected to have the design done for their property? In other words, this happened a year ago, some people forget. Seriously.
No.
The easiest way, the construction drawings will be on the website, and there's a service drawn on those properties based off that inspection. So you can go to those drawings, look up your property, and you'll see.
What's your property address?
Well, I mean, it's not really mine, it's like my neighborhood's, but
Okay.
272 Walker Bungalow Road. And I've seen, and basically, what you're saying is you see a line. You see a line come down the street, and then you might see a line to your property? Is that
So
what you mean?
there'll be, on every property, it says either did not elect for I forget the exact verbiage, but it basically says did not elect an inspection, or it shows the approximate alignment through their property that we're expecting it to take.
Okay.
I'm sorry, where is that?
There's on the plan drawings, so they were on the city's purchasing website, the ones that we had just shown,
Okay.
the ones that Severino bid on, and they will be on the website for the project. Yeah, the Sagamore Ave project page.
Okay, so we have, before we get into questions, please hold them if you don't mind. We have just this last part. So there's really three categories. We have the people that already have a design, and they will essentially have everything that we need to move forward. They'll have a cost. We have had, there was a question about people that might be interested in connecting and looking for a design to get done. So those people should contact Zach directly and get that moving as soon as possible. And then there's those who may not want to connect until a later date. So we need to, at some point, be able to identify the costs that we need to keep within the time frame that we have in the CIP. So by fiscal year 28 CIP, we're working on and completing by December of 2026. So we really want to, by December 2026, identify those who want to take part in the program as it currently stands, as we've talked about tonight. Granted, those, if they're connecting at that point, that's going to be done by someone else. If they're connecting after this contractor leaves, but that's something that by December 2026, we'd really like to know who wants to connect, so we can finalize our funding, and then that would be kind of the overall intention. And then I think that covers that. We have a number of frequently asked questions. We're going to run through those quickly if people can hold their questions. Okay, someone asked how the residents will know if the system is clogged. So we were not sure if this exactly meant the sewer system, meaning in the roadway, or if it meant the pump system. So we'll answer for both. So as far as the low pressure system that's in the roadway, the pump that you will have is a macerator pump, meaning it grinds everything up. So the debris that gets into the pipeline is generally ground up into small pieces. We have a number of these low-pressure systems throughout the city. We have not had to flush them. They have not clogged. We have not had issues with them. I've seen chunks of grease come out of them, like plugs of grease. The pumps are relatively high pressure, so even if there are something that's starting to slow up, it's gonna slug it out. So that's kind of the sewer system side. On the pump side, if there's a malfunction with the pump, or if there's high water, so if there's a malfunction would be like the pump didn't work, or if it's running too long, or there's water in the tank but the pump's running, or there's water in the tank and the pump isn't running, it's going to result in an alarm condition. So that little panel that we showed you earlier, it's going to beep really loud, like loud enough that you hear it inside the house. That is your cue to stop washing. Shut off the anything that's discharging water, so that we can figure out you can figure out what's wrong with the pump. We anecdotally, they tell us the people that have these in town have malfunctions very infrequent. The vendors who supply them said they're infrequent. They have service contracts. We went through all that kind of stuff during the course of the conversation earlier. And those are all things that we can resolve separately. But this is right now talking about the connection into it. So if the system, in terms of the system backing up and causing damage, again, so if this thing is alarming, you need to stop running your water. I think that's the first key thing. If you happen to be, if for some reason the system's not operating, water continues to flow, it will fill up. It's a 175 gallon,
120, somewhere in that range.
25 gallon bucket. It's going to fill up. Obviously, just like if the sewer system clogged, gravity sewer system clogged, you got to be aware enough to know that you're having a problem to stop it and preventing any kind of property impacts. So I think that covers this one. If we go to the next slide.
Does it have backflow?
Yes, there is a check valve at the property line at that curb stop, so anything from the main is isolated from your service.
It's actually it's a brass double check valve system that they have.
Curb stop
specifically-
actually a check valve?
In this case, it is. So a normal curb stop, we refer to it as a curb stop because most people understand what that is. It's a double check valve with a valve. So it has a valve that you can shut it off if.
Can be accessed from the street. Shut it
Correct. And then it has behind it on the private side, because you want to be able to service that, it's a double check valve. It's almost like a backflow preventer inside an industrial building.
The pump itself also has a valve.
And the pump has one, yes.
So it can't get past the pump also if there were to fail.
Okay, so we've talked about the project has been bid. I think we've talked about that one. Holding tanks priority one is because we've.
You did bid out the private part, and it's also separated?
Yes, that's how we have the
I missed
pricing.
that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So just to clarify, when we bid it, we had 4 parts to it. We only went under contract with 1 part, but the other 4 parts provided us the pricing. All we have to do is say go. But we have to have the money. We have to have, it's not quite that easy. We have to know who's connecting. We got to readjust the unit quantities for everything. So there's some extra work in there. Wire holding tanks, number 1 priority. That's because there's very few of them. The DES agreement on the fact that they were supposed to be connected to it when the new sewer was constructed.
Can I just do a quick one on that one? So it's just those 3 properties, not a house that's being built right now or any other property that's being developed right now and they throw in a holding tank and then they get first priority?
I
Or
don't.
just sticking it to those 3?
Right now there's 3. There's
2 north of the
one in.
creek.
Excuse me.
There are only 2 north of the creek currently, and it's if they're building now, the sewer main should be. It takes a long time to build new developments, so the sewer being substantially completed by December of this year, I'd imagine that.
Are you referring to the Golden Egg property?
Correct.
Yeah, they're in the process of trying to figure out whether whether the sewer's gonna come before the whether chicken's before the egg. Sorry. So whether the sewer's gonna be there before they need to connect to it, and I don't know where we're
I
at.
don't think it's fair that they would get higher priority on the south side versus anyone that potentially has a failed system, such as the woman that's on the web that's saying
Yep.
that she's at the mental health center.
Yep, they need a connection. Yes, I understand.
Okay.
Do homeowners need to connect? The answer is no. We'd recommend from the standpoint of, well, no, provided your septic is working. Once your septic does fail, you'll need to connect to the sewer. The state won't provide you a new septic. We'd recommend that you consider connecting now because of the cost sharing. We have the contractor on site. We don't suspect that the prices will be less in the future, just as general. Do undeveloped parcels need a service? There's not a whole lot of undeveloped services on the north side. There was one property that got recently subdivided. It will get a service. At 27 Shaw, the property or it's somewhere in the midst of getting subdivided.
But if there are no plans to develop a lot, there's no reason to extend a service to it or provide sewer service to it. If there's
What do we
no
do on the south side? Do we have services to the undeveloped lots? I thought we did.
Per request of the owner.
Okay. So we're not exactly sure on the service, but on the south side. But if there's plans to put a service in, we don't want to be going out and basically impacting the pipe. So if someone knows that they're going to do something with that property in a reasonable time frame, we're going to put in a service for them so we don't impact the longevity of that asset that sits in the ground. That's not for any of the ratepayers' benefit. So we will plan with the people that have plans. What costs will the homeowner cover? We've spoken about that. If owner chooses not to connect now, will the cost change? And that comes down to when the contractor leaves and when their pricing changes. So that is potential for that to change. Go ahead.
You guys talked about having $350,000 earmarked for the private sewer portion of this. And can you just describe whether you've got that already allocated? So you've got two properties on the north that have holding tanks, and then you've got, I don't know how many failed systems. I mean, how far down, how many properties does that cover right now?
So we have $300,000 from fiscal year 22, so that is money that is available to use. We have $450,000 earmarked in fiscal year 23, but as I mentioned tonight, I want to find out, if we can find out how many people want to connect, we will try and work with scheduling to see if we need more money or if we can schedule it properly based on people's needs. So there may be, the requests may go up. I don't know if the city council will agree to that or not. But we have the $450,000 earmarked, so between the $750,000 for those two, assuming that this is approved, that's about 15 homes. So, right, so at 44,000 and change, that's 15 homes. So that's why, on average, remember, that's the average. We're just using very high-level average numbers. It's not every individual property. So that's why we want to know sooner than later how many people want to connect, because up until now, all we knew is that we had a price. We didn't have commitment. So we want to move that ahead.
You have 65 homes that have requested design. That isn't all the homes, but that's a substantial portion of the north side.
On the north side, it was
both north and south.
You've got 65 north-south, and right now your fiscal year 22 plus what is going into CIP for fiscal year 23 would cover 15. So you've got 50 that aren't covered, and so what you're looking for is the people who have requested design to come forward and say, yes, we want it. I mean,
Yeah, that would be first to be anyone who has a design, yes. Anybody who wants a design and thinks they want to connect sooner than later, we want to know that as well.
Okay, and just on that, because again, I want people to get in touch with you if that's what you want. We get in touch with Zach and we say, looks like my house at blah, blah, blah has a design. We would like to connect sooner rather than later.
Yes, if there is a design.
Hold on. Let me just clear that part up. So in terms of the connection process and timing, we didn't talk about that very well, so let's cover that quickly. So the project's going to be constructed starting on Sagamore, going towards the creek, and then it will go down Shaw, right, and then up Walker Bungalow, and then you're going to do Cliff last?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Cliff will be last for this area. So we're working with Severino now to try and figure out with these systems, there's some people that we know need to be connected. It looks like it would make sense to go down down Sagamore get down to Shaw to the condominium area in the back, and then at that point get all the pipes tested so we can actually start connecting properties. Timing-wise, that looks like how long? We won't hold you to it. Approximately.
It was fall. Fall.
And just
Fall timeframe.
quickly, so you know, when you come down Shaw, that end, that what you're calling the condominium, you mean the cul-de-sac?
Sagamore Landing.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yep.
Because that's technically on Walker Bungalow, but whatever.
Oh, sorry, my bad. So Sagamore Landing, and we want to extend the pipe to it. We want to extend the pipe to a point and then get it tested. You can't connect services and stuff to it until it's all tested and ready to go. So at that point, it'll open us up in the fall timeframe to actually move forward with the first connections on the private side who are adjacent to the pipeline. Okay, and then at the same.
Right there, like.
Yep. And at the same time, they're going to continue up Walker Bungalow, and once they get to the end of Walker Bungalow, they're going to test that section, and that will be ready for private services. And then, while that's going on, they're going to be going over to Cliff to do that area, and then by the end of December, Cliff should be ready for private services. That will probably push until April the next year. But all those other properties will be able to at least start moving forward with them. So when we talk about the costs, there's a timing component here too. So but again, without commitment, it's hard to put all the pieces here together to try and figure out, okay, how much money do we need? When do people need it? And right now, the 15 will get us a good distance, and that's why we developed the prioritization, so that if we have to push people out who have an existing septic that's functional for a year, then we might have to have that discussion with people.
So the 44K includes the curb stop portion?
It does
Or
not.
it does
The
not?
44,000 is from the curb stop to the property and the house and the pump.
Perfect. So everybody gets a curb stop pretty much, because it'd be
Yeah.
insane not to give everybody a curb
Yeah,
stop.
well, you have to in order to have the system functional.
Got it. All right. So
Yeah.
everybody's getting a curb stop, and then the question is just, do you connect to it, with your piece versus the macerator and everything else? Got
Correct.
it.
I'm going to run through a few more. Appreciate you guys' patience. If property is connecting as multi-unit, will each owner, we have one condominium or one multi-unit on Sagamore Ave, as I understand it. So that unit will likely end up with one larger pump system. So it'll be a duplex system, right, that we're going with, or is it just a
I
simplex?
think it's called a multifamily.
Okay.
It's a larger tank.
Okay, larger tank, but a single unit. So the way that we need to work with that particular property, as well as any others who might be multi-unit from a condo perspective, is we have to work through the owner to talk about their condo docs. So normally, those type of things would be stipulated in the condo docs, who pays for it, how the costs are shared, how the maintenance is dealt with. We want to make sure that information's in there, and we can give you general guidance on how to do that. We won't be doing the work, but we just have to figure out what you have in place for association kind of documents.
Next slide.
Yeah, we're so close. Will there be a future survey for private connections? And we've talked about that. The survey is for those who want to connect and get a price, correct? Yes. What is the process for connecting? We went over, the city is drafting the memorandum of understanding. Obviously, everybody gets the opportunity to review it for your individual circumstances and look at it. We're going to try and use one templated version. We understand people might have their own things they need to address in there. We'll try and work through that, but we prefer to just use one template for all the properties. Current cost sharing proposal be available in perpetuity. It's very difficult to keep it in perpetuity because then the city has a never-ending obligation. As we discussed, it would in our program, we want to know everybody that wants to connect, at least under this program, by December 2026, so we can include it in the CIP for fiscal 28.
So no, the cost sharing will not be available in perpetuity.
Correct. Please describe the process for those wanting an inspection.
Reach out to me if you want an inspection to get the cost estimate now.
And we've discussed the last one a number of times. Go ahead.
I'm forgetting. Okay, 125 gallon, I have a 125-gallon fish tank, so if you want to see something like that, go to a pet store and you'll see how little that is for water. Anyway, after that, do you have like any range of what each house that you've estimated on, what's the highest you've seen for possible expense for a homeowner? Because I would think that most people would love to connect, but a lot of us are in retirement age, and we just don't have that money. And so I need to know, even if it's a 0% loan, I'm gonna have to work another bunch of years to pay for it. But how much is like the maximum what you're seeing for a house that you might have to go down a long driveway? And if your sewer septic is the back of your house, are you gonna try to go through the side of the house, the foundation, or the bulkhead, or what are you gonna try to do?
So again, it's very dependent on each property. We tried to work with the property owners during the initial survey to say, okay, where would you we kind of look at where's your existing septic system, right? Because you got a pipe coming out.
Back of the house?
A lot of them are, yeah. So there's, so anyways, you look at you figure out where the existing septic. We have a bunch of professionals sitting here that will help guide you through that process to say, okay, if you are to do an internal plumbing reroute, you might be able to save $10,000 by avoiding a rock wall on the back side of the property. So we will go through that process with you if you're interested in getting a design. The numbers vary. I don't know them off the top of my head, and honestly, I'd rather talk with each property owner to see if there's opportunities for cost savings. And if we need to do that, we'll do that.
Your foundation, if they have to?
If you do a plumbing reroute and you can't use the existing one, there's a penetration in the foundation, and again, all that portion is the city's cost regardless. So when we get to the portion that you as a private property would be responsible for, it's from that pump to the edge of the road. So that
sounds better than the last meeting.
it's the same, but and that pipe is a 1¼ inch diameter flexible pipe. So if you have a big rock in your yard, we can go around the rock if that helps. There's ways to manage that and try and reduce those costs.
Terry, on your range of estimates, what is like a top estimate you're hearing?
So
I'm not going to provide it. I don't know what it is off the top
I mean,
of my
the
head.
average was for 65 houses, so if you're 80 feet from the road or 30 feet from the road, they're doing an average, it's a case by case. So if you need that survey,
Isn't going to go more than $40,000.
if you need the numbers, you contact Zach.
$40,000 is the average for the entire cost. It is not the private property portion.
16.
And that's only on average. We need to, if you're interested in a connection, I'd like to,
Like a high.
and I'm not, I don't know the number.
Whose house it is.
You have to get a survey. It's case by case.
I know, but.
Is it 50
You've already
feet?
seen 60 houses or whatever.
So the average was 40 with 6.
I'm not talking about an average.
Well, that's all we can provide. If you want an
You
average.
don't have anything in.
We have the numbers. We'll be providing them to everybody who asks for it. If you'd like one, please let us know. Okay, thank you.
Another way to do this, can you get the homeowners' specifications of what they need? Because I can go get an estimate right down to the dollar on it.
Yeah, I understand your request.
So you want me to buy something, but you're not even telling me what it is.
I know,
It
that's-
does something, but what brand pump is it? What size pump is it?
Can I,
It's
can
a-
I jump in?
We need all those
Let me just,
specifications.
if I can jump in.
Well, I think at this point, until, right now, the only plan that we had in place until you asked that question was to do this work through contract with Severino. We can't take on the liability associated with a private contractor working on a private property. So, generally, short of having an opportunity to think about your question and see if there is an arrangement that would work, I'd have to say that, our contracts with Severino, the work will be done by Severino, or else you'll have to pay for the cost, all of the cost yourself. So,
Okay, so that'd be in writing out there somewhere with the specifications. I'm still trying to get the specifications.
sure, it's a,
So, I like to get 3 bids before I do stuff on my property.
yeah, no, I understand. We got,
I'm saying the first guy who walks in, go do it, buddy.
we have a competitive,
I don't even know what you're putting in.
sure, we have a competitive, this project was competitively bid
I get that.
through our process.
The whole project. I'm talking the
Yep.
single property owner.
Yeah, well, right now, if a property owner wants to connect themselves, they're absolutely allowed to do that at their cost.
The one
I have a
challenge to that is
question. So
timing.
our system-
Yeah, after the system's constructed. I mean, we got to wait till it's ready and available for you. Yeah.
So Sandy DeSisto, we're at 36 Shaw
Yep.
Road. So our system is fairly new. We've only been in the house for 5
Yep.
years. So we can elect to wait until as late as December 2028.
26. Just to plan for it, We need to.
But then
but-
we could wait to connect until, if we're in the plan.
Yeah, in
until
fiscal 28, correct.
28. Okay, my other question is, if we decide to go outside that time frame, then there would be a set of specs and an ordinance or something of what we would need to meet for our own construction.
Sure, if you were to,
go out there.
if you're outside of that time frame and you were to connect, this system was designed for one type of pump. And that pump is an Environment One system. So we could give you the specs. We can give you that information. That's not an issue. It's what they bid on. And there's other, but the piping diameter that literally sits in the ground or will sit in the ground is designed around one system. The systems all pump at about 11 gallons a minute. And that allows us to minimize the size of those systems so that they're small diameter. And then the process they described earlier, you have a certain number of pumps, the diameter goes up, is all driven by the number of pumps that connect.
And the last thing was that abandoning the current system, is there any kind of requirement for the leach field?
The leach field itself, no. The leach field, I think we're intending to just leave as is.
The septic tanks, yeah.
The tanks would get abandoned, broken down, cover taken off, and then loam and seeded if you wanted, or depending on where they sit in your yard, we'll have to figure that out. Yes.
I have a couple quick questions. One is, in 2020, this project per resident was going to be $6,600.
Yep.
2 years later, we're at $1,600. 16,000, sorry. How do you make it sure that that's where it's at? 16,000, that's where it is. I also am still curious, of who takes care, when is the city going to walk away and say, you're responsible for your pump, you're responsible for your electric line, that last little yellow portion to the house? When are you going to stop? I think you need to let people know that. And my third thing is, in 2026, that's when you're going to be done out of there, right?
So, done out of there for what? For this contract?
Mhm.
Okay. So, first,
Who takes care of it after that?
sure.
Because I
So,
don't see it being done in 2026. So those are my three questions.
okay, so let me try and clarify these. So, on the 6,600 was what we had at that time based on our estimates. So, the real numbers are 16,000 on average. So we just talked about that at length.
That, 16 average. I know it's average.
Average is average, so there's going to be some that are lower, there's going to be some that are higher, and that's why we're going to send it out.
But I'm keeping that average. How are you going to keep that average? Have you already made the deals with the contractors?
The prices are bid, so as long as we can get them under contract for as many people that want to connect, which has a number of complications as we tried to describe, between approvals, the contractual arrangement. This is not an easy contractual arrangement because we had to take a bunch of numbers that people said they wanted, put them in a contract as if it was going to be what gets executed. It's probably not what's going to get executed exactly, so we got to adjust for that. But right now, we're in a good place to do that if we have a good sense of what's going on and how many people want to connect. After that, we have to, as I mentioned, once they're out of town and we don't have fixed prices, then it's subject to whatever the city either comes up with a plan, or some folks might elect to just do it themselves, which would be their cost. But if they take part in the cost-sharing approach, we'd either have to do a contractor or do it with our own staff. We'd have to figure out what works best in terms of how many people want to do the work. We don't know if there's going to be 2 connecting a year. We don't know if there's going to be 12. If there's 2, we might be able to do it with our own forces. If there's 12, we're going to have to hire a contractor. We have on-call contractors that we could use to get pricing, and we'll probably have to re-up that pricing based on what I'm seeing every year at this point. So there's a number of different things that would go into it. I suspect Severino will be out of out from underneath the contract in the timeframe of, so we have, this is construction year 2022, 2023, probably the end of 2023 or the early part of 2024, like by June. I suspect they'll be out of town, assuming that the south side is awarded and we move forward. So then, as far as the future, what I was talking about is we're planning for funding through fiscal '28. We need to have our numbers in for the CIP by, latest December 2026 for fiscal '28, because it starts in, CIP starts very early. Counselors can tell you, but we start CIP in, August, September for the following fiscal year. So in order to get it for July 1 of 2027, which is the beginning of fiscal '28, we need to have numbers and number of connections by December-ish 2026.
So how long are you going to keep taking care of the pumps and the lines between the house and the pump?
Well, whatever we plan for by the end of December 2026 is what we're going to plan for, and that'll be whoever's in that grouping will be the end of what we plan for.
Can I chime in one thing? The warranty period.
Oh, sorry, warranty. Go ahead. You want to summarize the warranty?
Generally, we carry a 1-year warranty from when each property would be finished. So that individual property would have its own substantial completion with it, and once that pump's tested, approved, etc., there's a 1-year warranty period where that's where the contractor's still on the hook to make sure things are installed correctly.
And what is the average lifetime of the pump?
I don't know off the top of my head.
They said it's 15 to 20 years. Cost for replacement is about $2,500.
So yeah, the slide we showed earlier, it's just inside the tank. The pump's like its own little piece. You can kind of grab it out and replace it. It's not the whole new structure.
Oh, so you gotta get the specifications, do all the research on it, you get all this information.
Go ahead.
One other question. Just for complete transparency and no secrets, I don't understand why you can't tell me a high-end price for, like one of the worst-case scenarios.
What, did they range 60 grand? Was it
20,000, 30,000,
I don't have the numbers with me.
40,000.
That might be right.
If you have to blast and.
I don't think we have the numbers with us tonight.
Transparency, you should be able to tell me something in front of all these people.
The only way I could answer it, and I don't mean any offense to anybody.
I'm not trying to be
Yeah,
difficult,
okay,
I just-
if I'm gonna try and answer, if Tide Watch, you drove through there?
They're not part of it.
Okay, but you've drove through there?
I live
Does-
right next door.
Okay, does every house is the same distance off the road? So
I don't want to compare it to Tide Watch. We're not Tide Watch.
you're asking for a number on a particular house?
She's
Well,
asking-
Roger.
I'm just
Yeah,
asking
but-
for the
Roger, it's not-
worst-case
Yeah,
scenario.
I haven't been to your house, I don't know.
I'm not asking about
Yeah.
mine, I'm just saying the
What-
worst-case
I have-
scenario. Can you give me a number?
We can.
That's not
Well, if
secretive.
we have to, we'll just.
Why is it a big secret?
Well, there is no secret. So as we go through, we're consolidating the numbers so we can get them to everyone.
Is it because you just don't know? Are you telling me that?
Yeah. So when they did this, right? We took all the houses, all the private work, and we said, there's 17 stone walls. There's 6,000 feet of pipe, and these are not the exact numbers, but there's 6,000 feet of pipe. We need a number for
Yeah,
stone
you're
walls.
not averaging everyone with the same $16,000. So different people are going to have different costs. But all I'm
Yeah,
asking
we got to go through and break all that out and provide it
In other
to
words,
the
you're
owners.
not-
We have not done that yet. We've not done that
That's
yet.
what I'm trying to answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hey, so quick,
ahead.
just a clarifying question on my neighbor here who asked the question. So, assuming you want to put in your own piece of pipe between your macerator pump and the curb cut or whatever, the curb stop, you could do that, right? You guys still install the pump, you connect to the house, you put in the electrical.
We're not doing-
excavated. You can put in your own pipe, or you can excavate it yourself if you need to, or get your own contractor to do that. The 1.5-inch pipe, as long as it's by spec and connected.
We're not doing that at this point. I mean, I'll take the question back and ask to make sure I'm not overlooking this, but at this time, we have a contract. That contract stipulates all the work. It's a way that we have protection for the city to have the contract done. It's a way that we're going to be working through the memorandum of understanding to protect the homeowner, to do private work on private property. Starting to incorporate a bunch of other components in there, it gets very cumbersome and difficult. So right now, the way that this works is we will be contracting with the city's contractor to do the work on private property and that would be the cost-sharing component. So if you guys want to connect, it's the whole kit and caboodle with a repayment for that section.
Got it. Okay. So otherwise, you buy your own pump, you install it yourself.
Correct. Yeah, you can, I mean, if you want
The whole
to,
thing.
yeah, the city has a sewer connection permit. We would provide you with the information that's needed on the pump itself, because you do have to purchase that pump.
Sure.
And then you guys are welcome to do it, but it's your cost from that curb stop back. If you do it during construction, there's usually fees. Those fees will get waived, all that kind of stuff. There's all these other fees, but go ahead.
I have a question, and that is, if you don't connect by 2028, because you don't think you need to, and then your septic fails, that person has to do everything the way you want them to do that, or can they put in another system for their septic?
That person can put in,
Not another septic, but by 2028, there might be something better than whatever this is you're putting in. And if let's say it's me, if I have to do it in 2029 or 2030, I have to put in this same pump. I have to do exactly the way you have decided it should be done?
well,
Can I make a different
you
plan?
was not me. But
No,
yeah.
not you personally.
Yes, you have to use this particular pump. So you can hire whoever you'd like, you can get 3 prices, you can do whatever, but the pump itself has to be the one that gets connected. And that pump, as a general rule, is pretty simple in nature. It has a 1 1/4 inch pipe that connects from the pump to the edge of the road, and then you have a regular gravity pipe that comes from the house, however it comes, and gets to that pump.
But I have to use your system and your methodology.
You have to use the Environment One pump, yes, because of the way that the pipes in the roadway were sized.
What if you hate the thing? What if the whole city says
I have a lot of
this
things I
pump
hate.
is no good?
Is it just the pump, or is it the pump and the tank that it goes in? Is that one whole kit, the pump and the tank?
It's one piece, yeah.
So if somebody's gonna do it in 2030, it's the pump and the tank? Is the
The
whole thing
pump and the
installed?
tank are an integral piece that goes together. You can pull the pump out,
Okay, thank you.
but they're sold as a package with the electrical and all that stuff. It comes as a package deal.
And the alarms and stuff.
Yeah, it's a company called FR Mahoney.
And is there, this is related to that, so like I have a fairly new septic tank and septic system. So like I personally am probably not going to need the connection for a good couple of decades.
Yep.
How do I know that there's gonna be this pump to get, how does the city know that that pump's gonna be around 2 decades from now plus?
I mean, they've been around for how long now?
I think over 100 years at this point,
Yeah.
I believe.
Okay, and the same models?
Same model.
Okay,
I mean,
perfect.
they make marginal improvements, but they generally
Yep.
result in the same hydraulic conditions that allow us to use the
That's
pipes
okay,
that are in
I
the
just wanted
street.
to make sure that part is.
Yeah.
Speak. Cool, thank you.
Go ahead.
As far as the pump, what annual maintenance is needed to it, if any?
We had a previous presentation on that. We can provide that information, but it should be on the city's website. We had a representative from FR Mahoney come out and give a presentation on the E1 pump. So that should be available on the project page of the city's website.
And just
And as far as, go ahead.
let's just say to elaborate on that. So FR Mahoney, they both sell the pump. They also do municipal maintenance for many cities and towns across the Northeast, at least. And they basically took those stats for, it was like 8 or 10 years of stats of where they run it for entire towns. And they use those numbers to develop their approximate cost per year. So it's not like a one-off of one homeowner on some dead-end street. It's a big period of data.
And as far as the alarm and the electrical box, does that have to be outside or can it be inside the garage?
That needs to be outside because when the person comes to operate the pump, they need to be able to basically turn off the power. If you need to have someone come in and actually remove the pump or adjust the pump. And then also, if that person's going to be there, you don't necessarily have to be at the house at that point, so they can actually access it if needed when you're not around.
Go ahead.
I have a related question. Power outages. How do we handle that? The power goes out, your pump is going to stop working. It's going to alert you to that? And do you need a generator? Do we need a generator?
So there is the ability to have a generator hook up to it, but typically when your power is out, things like your washing machine, your dishwasher, the large water usage items are no longer functioning. So
Yeah, and
there's
just,
very little water
just
usage.
being aware, well, I mean, your shower will still function in the city because if you're connected to city water, so you just got to be aware that you have this mechanical piece of equipment that will stop. Just like if it alarms, I mean, you got to know to stop running the water so that you can deal with it.
And the state,
So everybody should get a cost estimate, regardless if they tie in now or not.
I think so.
So they know what they're looking at. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And then they should have a specification sheet, so they'll have that. So if they want to tie in down the road, they're gonna have, this is what you wanted today, this is the system you want. I'm gonna tie in 5 years from today, I already have it in writing, be a lot easier, this is what we're gonna put in.
Case by case.
So to me, I think everybody should get the cost anyways, regardless, if you tie in or not. Because down the road, at some point, there's a good chance that you're gonna need it.
Yep.
And maybe everybody in this room won't be still doing these jobs, right? Somebody else may, you want the specifications.
Well, yeah.
This is a
Go ahead.
suggestion.
I have a quick question about, a couple questions, I'm gonna narrow it down. You mentioned that, in the MOU, there's a section related to the wetlands buffer. What are we signing off on in that? Like, what is that actually that we're signing off on? We're signing off
go ahead.
for-
So as part of the permitting process of this, we told the state what we're intending to do. So again, for those 65 properties that let us know what they're intending to connect, we basically told the state, hey, we're planning these pieces, these houses will connect. We think the sewer pipe will go roughly in this alignment. And a lot of those houses near Sagamore Creek specifically, there's a 250-foot buffer from Sagamore Creek's a high water mark roughly back. And so any work in that area, we had to tell the state we're going to do it. In the public right away, the city can sign off because they're the permittee in the public. On your private property, you have to sign off saying that you are aware that we are in the buffer zone. The state has already approved the work in the buffer zone. But you just have to sign off saying you're aware of it. And when it comes time for that, there'd probably be a one-on-one chat with each of these residents explaining what that sign off is. But that's the gist of it. It's notifying you that we're impacting the buffer zone. It's previously disturbed areas because the property's already built on it, and they're going to restore it back to a similar condition. So there are issues in there where if you ask like the contractor to pave a huge part of your property, you would not be able to as part of that MOU because that permit's going to say we're putting back what was there.
And another good point about just identifying who wants to connect. There are going to be properties that we need to amend the permit to include. So if there's additional properties that want to connect, we'll want to know that so we can get the permitting process underway.
Terry, there's one question from Patrick Trevino about a spring underneath the road in front of his house.
So Patrick's just
Maybe we
letting
talked
us know
about
that there's a
before.
spring underneath the road in front of his house and
290 Walker Bungalow.
290 Walker Bungalow. So we'll have the contractor to check up on that and just bring it to his attention, their attention.
Thank you, Patrick. I have one more thing on the question earlier about power outages. The state did require us for every pump to include a receptacle for a generator. So if you guys have a generator, there is the ability to have this operate when power is out also.
And so that will be included even if we don't have a generator already.
Correct.
There is not a generator. We're not
There's
supplying
no
a generator, but the connection.
Connection will be there regardless.
Yes.
Is there a battery backup? The alarm?
I believe the alarms have not, a long-term 9-volt or something in there.
Yeah, something to that extent. And they, similar to the other study, the E1's done a ton of research on all these things, and they did some nationwide study of duration of power outages, and some of those things factor into their design, and that's what some of the improvements over time.
Do the pumps run on 110 or 220?
I believe they're all 110. It's a 1 or 2 horsepower pump. So there are a couple of properties that are commercial users, like the person that called in earlier. That might be a little larger because it's a 2 horsepower pump, but they should also, I think, operate at 110.
Yes.
Can I go back, again, Sheridan Lloyd, 45 Cliff Road, go back on the blasting. Are you the representative, I'm sorry, for the blasting?
No, we're with Severino, but they're our contractor.
So on the blasting, the area that we're on Cliff Road, then you also have Walker Bungalow behind us, this whole area was originally a quarry. And so there is lots of the areas where it's actually either from building the houses or from the quarry, I don't know what, but there are open areas underground that is just rubble that then has dirt on top of it. So there's huge cavernous areas under parts of properties, and it's in multiple properties around. Is there any blasting impact that's different, or the ramifications of blasting that's different around those type of properties or that type of land versus ones that are solid granite? Because again, Cliff Road is called Cliff because it is a cliff of stone, solid stone. There are houses in the neighborhood also that are literally cemented onto parts of the cliff. So if anyone has any thoughts or knowledge in what's the ramifications when you do blasting on these extreme differences of, is it bedrock, I guess, or whatever that, you know, you got rocks and then you got rubble underneath, and what's the ramifications of any of this moving?
Sheridan, how'd you find out that information? Is it just from your experience of digging in your yard, or what's the,
Couple different things. For knowing that was a quarry, it's actually one of the churches in town. We were told was built partially from the rock that came from the quarry. There's also some of the, believe it or not, deeds in the area that still have, the mineral rights are being maintained by somebody from like 100 years ago on some of the deeds. And yes, in going in our land, we can end up dropping a 6-foot-long steel rod down in, and it drops down 5 feet down into the ground. In other areas, you're just putting right on the top, and then it'll go right down to the ground 5 feet.
So, I guess on that, as if any residents are aware of that in their property like you are, when you have your pre-blast survey, let main drilling and blasting make sure you're aware of it. So if you point out those spots, they can at least be aware of it, they can note
I
it.
think the blasting company should be aware too, because we just found the chipmunk holes and started exploring in it. I've talked to other neighbors, and they've been saying sort of the same thing. They can plant some areas, they can't other areas, and they're finding that there's these huge openings and cavernous areas on parts of their yards.
Yeah, so when main drilling and blasting's there, anything you know about your property, tell them. If you're like, hey, I know there's a buried propane tank, and they won't know unless you tell them. So anything, especially subsurface,
Yeah.
if you guys know things that they don't know, at least give them a heads up. Sometimes they might not be able to do anything about it, but they can at least be aware of it and plan accordingly.
Keep the fingers crossed.
Well, or they, as I mentioned earlier, those may be spots where they just avoid drilling or blasting if they can, and it all is going to depend on, you know, how competent the rock they're finding and the street is, and a lot of other issues.
Okay, thank you.
But the more you can tell them and ask them, like, they are the experts at blasting, so.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, and we'll definitely let them know about that.
And their representative is the one that's coming out for doing the
pre-blast survey?
blast survey?
Yes, that's correct.
These are the I know you've done this before, and I'm sorry, Joan Griffin, 75. But all I'm paying is somebody to dig a hole and put a pipe. And then you're gonna put the brass back?
Yeah, they will, the contract, from a cost perspective, has full restoration after that pipe gets put in. So whatever was there before gets put back.
So all I'm really paying for is somebody to come and dig this trench across my front lawn, put a pipe in.
And then repair the trench.
That's it. Somebody else fills it in, somebody else puts the grass on it.
They do.
So that is included in the cost sharing
Yeah.
piece of it. So if they're going under a stone wall on that,
I'm just asking, I don't know the stone wall, I just.
I'm just using it as an example. Like, wherever they're restoring along that pipeline,
The answer
that
is
cost
yes.
is on you. Paid through the city's contract. But if there's a stone wall in the way they have to take down and rebuild, that cost, if it's on the piece of pipe between the pump and the road shut off, that's on the private property owner. If that's behind the pump to the building, then it's on the city.
Yeah, so if you have like a major, what he's saying is just if you have something major that's in that area, the restoration of that is a separate cost that is still in the private property's portion. And that's what gets itemized when we have the opportunity to go through that and provide it to everyone.
See, during the meeting, you didn't say it that way. You
I
said
heard the
that-
opposite.
Yeah, I heard the opposite.
Okay.
That the city was gonna restore it. Whatever they had to take apart, they would restore it, like to the house or to the driveway or.
The city's contractor will be restoring it all. I think that may be
Do the
what Terry
work.
was trying to
But I'll be
imply.
paying.
Correct.
There's a
Put
cost.
the grass back and all the rest of that.
There's a cost sharing to each of those, yes. And
That's not what you said.
in some of those things you can discuss with the contractor. If you want, for example, to not repair your wall, and you guys want to do that on your own, like those are things you can discuss with the contractor and can be removed from your guys' scope, but that's in your interest or your mind, not cost effective for you guys to do. But the city had to come up with a way to basically rectify who's paying for what, and the general thought was, those are the same costs if you're going to get a gravity sewer connection anywhere else in the town. So they were trying to basically pay off the difference in cost between a low-pressure sewer, this unique situation because of all the ledge, and what a typical homeowner would see throughout the city.
One other question related to this, because people keep talking about the 16,200. Do you have any idea, or was there any discussion or evaluation as to the price being high because there's gonna be the requirement of blasting on properties to put that private lateral line in? Or was it not to that level of detail of understanding what the average of 16,200 comes from?
We carried some ledge, so we did borings in the street and probes in the street, and they're not at everyone's property and exactly where the pipe's going.
So it was a guess that, yes, some of these properties will most likely have blasting required to put the pipe in.
Right, throughout the whole alignment. And so some properties, they might see in their MOU that there's no ledge assumed, other ones might see there is ledge assumed. And some of those things we just can't know because it's underground, and we did our best guess to try and estimate those where we could.
Go ahead.
This guy said that the main has to be, I think, 5 feet down. How far down does the service to the house have to go? Same?
The service is generally in the same depth. If we get into areas that are really difficult with ledge, there's other ways to deal with it. We can heat trace them. There's a whole bunch of different ways that we can kind of modify different things, but generally you want to try and get it down below the frost level so it's not impacted on that. But it is one continuous pipe, so it is more. It's less impacted by things like frost. But you don't want it to freeze either. So.
Another question I had regarding, right, say, I live in a Walker Bungalow, say 10 people hook up, 2 people have generators, the others don't. In the event of a power loss with my house and say another house on a generator, it's only gonna push that to the main, it's not gonna go anywhere once it's on the main, because the other houses aren't going.
Yeah, every time that you push any water into that main's going to be completely full up to the gravity sewer all the time. So anytime one pump goes into it, that amount comes out the top. It's always under pressure. Well, low pressure.
Yep.
Even one pump is going to push it 3 miles.
Yeah. It's positive. It's positive displacement, meaning 125 gallons goes in, 125 is going to go out. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to bleed.
But that's part of why it needs to be this pump that gets installed by the companies.
So I got a question. So, other part of this financial impact of this is your monthly bill, right? So as I understand it, it's a 5x multiplier on your water bill. Is that?
What? Sorry, we did present the cost, but yes, you end up having to pay the sewer fee as well.
Which is?
Last I checked, approximately four times the water bill.
4 times the water bill?
Yeah, approximately, yes.
Okay.
And he thought it was 5.
So, any chance that's going to change?
Every year we
There's a new sewer project going on in town, I've heard.
yeah, every year we do the update on the rates. So it's subject to change based on our rate projections annually.
Okay. But you don't expect that to change drastically?
With the cost of everything going up now, are you kidding?
I mean, we're right now we've been working. The biggest impact we had was Pierce Island facility. We did the rate stabilization for that, and that's going to go back into repayment. So we're predicting in the range of 4% rate increases, and then we have to be in front of budget in the near future, and it's always subject to fluctuations based on things like chemicals.
4% per year going up for the next 10 years, that's...
That was what our projections were, yes.
40% in 10 years that would be going up.
It's 4% per year, yep. Go ahead.
So quick question, just a sort of a longer term question, and this is specific to me or anyone who has a newer septic right now. If I sell my house prior to needing a replacement, am I being required by the city to hook up before I sell?
No. I spoke with Kevin Keaney, or Cavaney at New Hampshire DES, and as long as it is a functioning septic within state laws, we are able to waive the requirement to connect in to the sewer.
Is that going to be put in writing somewhere so that I can have a record of that? Just because, again, we've got a lot
I have
of
an email from Zach that says that, I'll forward to you.
Perfect, thank you.
Now, is that different from the 1980?
Yeah. Excuse me?
Requirement? Anything older than 85 has to be replaced? Are
It's
those
not
two
a
separate
requirement
issues?
before 85.
Go ahead and clarify the 1985.
Yes, so the 1985 is a DES requirement. It is the approval of a septic prior to January 1st of 1985. We updated our sewer ordinance in December of 21 to give more leeway for the city to waive requirements of connections.
So the state is in charge of septic, so when you, for those of you who had your septic replaced, you have to go through the state. After my discussions with them, I realized there's not a lot of staff overseeing that program. They're just limited with the number of people from an oversight standpoint. So, while there's some provisions out there, I'm not sure how hard they are enforced. Obviously, if there's anyone that has a system that they say, hey, it's working perfect, the neighbor comes to the health department and says, holy smokes, it smells like gross stuff over here, we're going to have to investigate that, and then it gets bumped up to the state. They likely will come and inspect, and they'll make a determination at some point. But there's not like a hard and fast, we're working with what that guidance is and understanding that it's not a perfect system, enforcement system. Go ahead.
I want some clarification on this pricing. Say I don't want to commit today to tie in, but I'd like to get a price.
Yep.
Down the road, so thinking about it, but I want to know what I'm buying. So can we get a price, a written estimate on it, with the specs? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, do you just want to be in the ballpark?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I want to be there. No, I want to know what I'm buying, that's what I'm getting at.
So every person who asks
Sorry,
for a
hold on,
home-
Zach, one second. When you say you want to know what you're buying in the specs, you want the specification, we can pull it right out of the document that they bid, and it has all the information on this pump.
No, just for each property is what I was trying to get at. So each property has a different price.
Yep.
16,000 is an average.
Yep.
So some are under, some are over. So just for our property, can I just get a price for our property, a written price?
You can schedule an inspection,
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
and then
Yeah, we got to
Without a
start,
commitment
but it's
today.
no, you don't need to commit today, and you didn't get a price, so there's nothing to commit to.
So that's the clarification I want, because it
Yeah, so you
makes
get
more sense to me if everybody gets an estimate, and then they can determine each property owner if it's worthwhile for them or not.
Sure, so you talk to Zach.
Okay.
We'll get a design that looks, well, we don't have much, but the design is just a plan view, and it itemizes the different numbers. We have costs already, so we can apply the itemized numbers by the costs, and we'll get you a total.
Good, thank you.
And as far as specifications, the specifications for the product are on the website too. So
Okay.
we literally have like a 800-page document or so that says when they're going to install a pipe that they're going to put this much stone under it. When they're going to put back the grass, they have to do this compaction test. There's a zillion things in the specs.
Everything's specified.
It's the full spec if you want to see what we're recommending.
Yeah. So and then just be aware that once in order to get that design, we do have to go in and just confirm if you have electrical capacity and if there's a beneficial routing approach.
Okay.
Is it better to reroute the plumbing, or is it better to just stay where it is, so we can try and minimize what's the most efficient route, how do we minimize the impact, and ultimately minimize that cost.
It's also great if you're there for that to help, because sometimes a little more cost or less disruption is also beneficial. Like
Yeah.
some people would rather the work stay all outside their house.
I'll be there, I'll help you.
Okay, but again, it could be a cheaper cost, but it involves a lot more disruption to your basement than potentially something outside your house that might be beneficial to you, because you don't have to be there when the work's going on.
Very good.
So, this was probably discussed 2 years ago or whatever when we talked about the E1 system, but you brought it up again, the fact that the top of the tank is at surface level. So that means the tank is not below the frost line. So, what do you do, is the possibility of it freezing, if you go away for Christmas or something like that, or you go away for 2 weeks in the wintertime, is it possible for the system to freeze, or do you have to put antifreeze in it, or pump it out, or?
So the water's down below 5 feet. So the top of the system is at grade, and I don't recall, do they insulate their covers? I thought they did.
I think
I'm
they
not
do
sure.
too, but I'm not 100% sure either.
They may be an insulated cover, we're not positive, we'll try and confirm that.
It's a really deep tank then.
Yeah, the tank goes down, and then when you open up the tank, it's a big cavern until you see the pump down there, and then the bottom, the bottom couple feet is really where all the water is. So then that's down below the water, down below the frost level.
So you may end up being blasting right next to the foundations then, to be able to put those in, if they're that deep.
Depending on, the conditions, we'll have to figure that out.
Does the tank have to go right against the house? Like, is it sometimes pulled off the house?
We can pull it off the house, and if we have to blast right next to a house, it's gonna go a little bit further away.
That's what I was gonna say, like, my house,
And honestly, it may even be beneficial to utilize the location of the existing septic tanks. So if the septic tank's already down 5 feet, it may be less expensive to actually remove a portion of that to put it there and just capture the pipe that's going into it.
Yeah.
So those are the things that get into the nitty-gritty details.
Generally speaking, the tank is roughly 5 feet down.
Well, it's gonna vary based on, you have an existing pipe. Sometimes oftentimes septic pipes tend to be very high. The tank, your tank a lot of times gets brown in the summer. That pipe is not that deep. But they generally have to be down about 5 feet.
Right. And the width of the trench for the service is how wide, roughly?
Varies on ledge again. We're only putting an 1.25 inch pipe, but if you have to hole ram it, which we typically prefer to do rather than blasting in your yard, by the time you start out 5 feet and get down, the trench needles down. So we own restoration for the loam. I mean, the excavator, the pipe's only that big, but the excavator.
Yeah, if it's on a lawn, it may be 2 feet. If it's in
Yeah.
ledge, it could be 5 feet.
I have an aesthetic related question. So where the pump comes up out of the ground, will we have control to some degree of where that goes? So like, I have a wee little tiny yard, and very little of it is sort of like publicly usable space. I'd love to not have a pump in that space. Very little of it's flat. Do we get any kind of say over where that ends up going?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that, so in your condition where you may not elect to connect, you can do whatever you want if you're paying for all of it. Even in the condition that you're paying for just the service under the cost-sharing proposal, if you want to locate it somewhere else, it just will have an impact on the service portion.
And we did try to keep a certain distance off the house. I forget the exact number, but it's mostly from make sure an excavator can get to that point without hitting the building is some of the factors to it. So if you try to get too close to your house, the contractor's going to probably have concerns because they don't want to damage your property. But to a certain extent, you guys we're not trying to put it in the middle of your yard and put it in your way. We're trying to get as much out of the way as you can. And if there's like a loam area in your property that we didn't notice when we were out there initially, that's usually a good place to put it near because you can dust it over with a little bit of loam and kind of cover that part up. It has to be accessible in the future because if you have an issue, just like with your septic, someone has to get to it. And typically, it's a third-party company for this type of things because most people don't work on their own pumps. And if they can't access the spot, they won't know where to go. They'll help you.
Would it be bad to put it in the driveway?
I don't think you can put you can't drive a car over it, so it can't be located in the driveway. Thank you. If you guys want to grab a contact sheet, I don't know if that'd be.
Want me to start passing these
There is
around?
an odor associated with this tank?
The odors stay captured inside the tank, just like your existing plumbing. It's all gonna be still connected to your vent pipe in your house. So it's really not a huge change, no worse than a septic tank that is also enclosed. Yes?
So I'm on the north side, 1167 Sagamore. Obviously, you said it was by the budget based on how much money to get it accomplished. Worst case scenario, if my septic does fail, like I talked to you before, Zach, for the holding tank, am I still allowed to do that? And who will pay for that if it's gonna take, say, 2 years to get in line to correct and connect.
So if your septic fails, we'll, you know, that was one of the high priority, you know, we try to shift around priority and money so that you get prioritized. If all the money's spent, we'll have to try and come up with another way to fund it. You know, we want people to connect, we want to resolve
Right, yeah, no, I
the
wanted to
issues,
connect,
so.
but I know it kind of changed prior to 2020. It was going to be all on one sheet, and now it's north and south, so.
Right.
I wasn't really anticipating that, so.
We weren't either. Other questions?
Well, you said you could make all those slides, we could come pick them up?
Yeah, if you'd like a printed
I'd
copy, we
I'd
can
like-
do
I'd
that.
like a paper copy of the.
Okay, and we'll put the slides up on the website as well.
Pardon?
Well, the slides will go on the website, but I'll.
Yes,
we'll-
I'd like a paper.
We'll print a copy.
Thank you. On this very nice paper, please.
I don't know where that paper came from.
This may be a little bit redundant, but so if we have any issues in the street, well, any of the construction's being done having to do with any component of it, do you still post
Yes.
it, Ron?
Yes, you will.
Roy.
Your phone number. Roy, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay. And your best contact is calling you first?
Yes,
Oh, yes.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, he'll generally be
But
on site.
If there's work going on, you should see me on the site, so I should be
Yell out your
pretty
window.
close by.
Yeah.
You'll be wearing a blue shirt.
Tap your heels 3 times, he'll show up.
Thanks, everybody. Have a nice night. Appreciate your time.
Please do grab a contact sheet on your way out.
Recording stopped.
We didn't have any more questions.